It is 10 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL released the list of players invited to the NFL Scouting Combine Thursday with a total of 329 prospects. 6 from the University of Tennessee. They are Dylan Sampson, Brew McCoy, Dante Thornton, Omar Norman Lott, James Pierce Jr., and Elijah Simmons. Colorado star Travis Hunter is listed as a defensive back on the invite list. USA Hockey opened its Four Nations face-off campaign on Thursday with a 6-1 win over Finland, who had Preds goalie UC Saros between the pipes. College hoops this weekend. Tennessee and Vanderbilt meet for the second time this season. The Commodores travel to Knoxville on Saturday. Tennessee looking to avenge a 76-75 loss at Memorial Gym January 18th. Tip-off is at noon. Vol Network coverage begins at 11:30 here on The Zone. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
We got quarterback dominoes to talk about, and we have Nashville Super Bowl adjacent news to start the morning with. Happy Friday. Congratulations to all involved. You made it, unless you forgot to do your Valentine's Day shopping or gift acquiring, and then you didn't make it.
Sounds like you.
No.
Sounds like you can relate to that.
In years past, but not this year. This year I'm prepared, which allows me to throw stones from my glass house. So I'm very happy about that. You had your Valentine's Day celebration last week?
Yes, I was up to see Megan last weekend.
That didn't stop you from taking a Valentine's Day cupcake?
No, it didn't, and it never will. Thank you, Lisa Manning. Shout out.
I am generally concerned about people in the city of Nashville on Valentine's Day because, there's plenty of wholesome relationship things going on throughout the course of the afternoon. But I went to breakfast this morning, and I'm sitting at the bar because it's just me. I don't want to take up a whole table. And 2 people sit down next to me at the bar, a man and a woman, and they don't appear to be a couple, but they start their morning at, I would say, 9:26 a.m. with a couple of shots of Four Roses bourbon.
Oh.
And I looked over at them and I said, oh, is that kind of Valentine's Day? So some people celebrate the traditional fashion. Other people go to a breakfast place at 9:30 in the morning, sit at the bar, and get drunk.
Mad respect.
I don't know, man.
That's
I wanted to do like a wellness check. I walked in with my AirPod in today. Jackson asked me what I was listening to. I said nothing. I just keep it in there so people won't talk to me. And I almost at that point looked over, broke my interested cone of silence to look over and be like, "Hey, are you okay?"
I love that. I love it. It's a lovely sipping bourbon. I'm a fan of Four Roses, but I've never thought to shoot Four Roses.
It was straight to the dome, and I was not envious of those particular people as I went about having my coffee and coconut banana bread. Delightful.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was really good.
Where?
Hearts.
No free ads.
No, that's fine. Hearts in East Nashville. Listen, all the free ads for good food. I am for sale that way. You can get free advertisement out of me by just giving me good food, good free food. Not like Lucas who will eat, day old. How many days has the chili been sitting in the mini fridge that you continue to eat?
That's 2.
Will you be eating some today?
Slay offered his up.
It's going on day 3. So, quarterback dominoes. I mentioned to start the show, Derek Carr is a name that gets brought up a lot. We obviously talked about Aaron Rodgers yesterday. His release, or his post-June 1 release, made official by the New York Jets. That's the first kind of step in the direction of all the different quarterback options that the Tennessee Titans will be able to consider. Rodgers can go about the offseason as normal. He can agree to terms with the team. He can sign after June 1 and go about his business that way. Derek Carr is another name that Titans fans bring up a great deal. And he famously under contract with the New Orleans Saints, who do not have a clear and obvious solution at the quarterback position. Spencer Rattler, not really doing much to, or Jake Haener, I guess, doing much in the absence of Derek Carr throughout the course of the season to kind of quell any quarterback discussion in New Orleans this year, right?
Yeah, I don't think there was much inspiration out of the performances of those two players.
So, Titans fans have an interest in Derek Carr. There's connections to Brian Callahan with Derek Carr and other members of the Titans coaching staff, but he has to be available. And famously, the New Orleans Saints have a new coach. So, Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator of the Eagles, gave his introductory press conference. Was this yesterday or earlier in the week?
Yesterday.
And he was asked about his quarterback situation, specifically Derek Carr. This was Kellen Moore.
I view it as Derek Carr is a tremendous starting quarterback in this league. We're fortunate to have him, and we're excited to go through this process, as we build this roster together. Again, I'm meeting these guys for the first time the last few days. Really excited to meet more of them, and this will be a lot of fun.
Non-committal as expected.
I would describe that as politely non-committal. Like he said, lucky to have him, which right now he's their best quarterback on the roster. And just kind of diffuses the situation by saying, just now getting here, getting to know the guys. Asked later about Alvin Kamara, definitely seemed more concrete on his future. Obviously, he just did a deal last year, so it's not like Alvin Kamara is expected to go anywhere. But Derek Carr, with the Saints in pretty significant cap hell.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a Saints fan, though, what is your option beyond Derek Carr? Is that not your best option in the immediate future?
Without question. In 2024, Carr played in 10 games before he went down with that season-ending hand injury. He completed 67.7% of his passes for 2,145 yards, 15 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Sacked 8 times, a rating of 101.
He's solid. It wasn't bad. I mean, the Saints had injuries. The Saints are obviously in a weird spot. They're kind of in this NFL purgatory. Then Carr gets hurt. The bottom falls out with the level of quarterback play that they were receiving at the time. They are expected to be, right now, as we sit here today on February the 14th, they are currently 54.1 and change million dollars over the salary cap. The biggest cap hit, or the biggest cap number that they have in 2025 is Derek Carr. $51.45 million.
It's hefty in 2026 as well.
So they could go about this in a way that allows them to move on from Derek Carr, but it's not going to be painless. The savings are not consequential. It doesn't give them significant cap relief, especially for what you're losing, which is a veteran quarterback. Like, whatever Derek Carr has been throughout the course of his career, I think he's always hovered around like top 10 to top 15 level of quarterback play in the NFL. Most teams would be grateful to have that, and you can trust him, which is a big part of the conversation as well. He does not make overwhelmingly bad decisions. I think that was reflected in his play with the Saints. I think that he was a good quarterback for a solid period of time. 2014 draft pick. He's going into year 12 in the league. He's still viable. If we're going to talk about 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers having a landing spot, then certainly Derek Carr.
Be 34 in March.
Would be of interest to some teams, but he has to be available. And I would be surprised if he wasn't on the Saints roster.
Yeah, he's not a quarterback that has a reputation for being injury prone. I mean, he's played 15 or more games every single year of his career other than last season when he played in 10 and then had the hand injury. Now, he did get injured late. What was the season? 2016. After 15 games, he got injured, and that was the one postseason appearance. Or no, he had 2 postseason appearances, or led the Raiders to 2 playoffs, and he missed the playoffs in 2016 due to an injury, but otherwise, largely healthy player. He is exactly what I think of when I think about a veteran, stopgap, stabilizing quarterback that a team like the Titans needs.
But he's not, I mean, I don't know. I don't really expect him to be available.
Yeah, whether he's available or not is a whole other conversation. But when we talk about veteran stopgap, he is the one that flashes in my mind.
Right. It's something that, in a perfect circumstance, obviously you would be able to pick from a variety of these different options instead of, seeing your options become more and more limited as time passes. And again, we don't know what the Saints are going to do. Kellen Moore, as he's saying, just got there. Going to take time to evaluate the situation. The cap for the Saints is bad, so any cap relief that they can find is meaningful at this point unless they're going to move more money around. I would be shocked to see them do that with a player like Derek Carr, for example. But they've done it before, so who's to say what steps Mickey Loomis will take next. But we'll see what happens there, and that'll be something worth kind of following along, certainly when we get around to the combine coverage, because, we'll be up in Indianapolis and keeping track of all that kind of stuff.
Did you see all this stuff about Derek Carr and Kellen Moore and that they faced each other in college?
As players?
Yes. When Moore was the quarterback at Boise State, Derek Carr the quarterback at Fresno State.
No.
So this was from Ian Rappaport yesterday. They met once in college as starting quarterbacks. Number 5 Boise State blowing out Fresno 57-7 in 2011. Kellen Moore had 254 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Carr had 126 yards and an interception, the second largest loss for Derek Carr at any level.
So what is Kellen Moore saying when he sees Derek Carr? Eat it.
Yeah, but then you look at their career earnings in the NFL as a quarterback, and Carr can just say, eat it right back.
Kellen Moore done pretty well as a coach. I mean, it was immediate. And people obviously respected his level of acumen, what he brings to the table, and obviously what he's been able to accomplish as a coordinator. Now, a first-time head coach. The other thing that's in the news today that came out basically as I was driving in is the 2029 Super Bowl. Now, what do you care about the 2029 Super Bowl? It's expected to be awarded to Las Vegas, this according to Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio, which would be a bit surprising because that would mean that it's only been 5 years. It will only have been 5 years since the last time Vegas hosted a Super Bowl, the logistics of which were not ideal, but, it's Las Vegas and Los Angeles, and they have new stadiums, and they're obviously going to be in the rotation. The reason why it's a bit surprising and why people in Nashville would care is because that would be the first year that Nashville, in the new stadium, is eligible to host a Super Bowl, and typically that's been the case for teams or clubs building new stadium. If this did go to Vegas, as reportedly it is expected to be, because right now the next one is in Super Bowl 60 is in Santa Clara, then you go back to Los Angeles, Atlanta, and then 2029 right now expected to be Vegas, so the earliest Nashville would be hosting a Super Bowl in this situation would be 2030 in the new Nissan Stadium. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Jordan Reed going to talk some draft with us from ESPN. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Will I have enough money when I retire? When should I start to draw from Social Security? If these questions keep you up at night, let me introduce you to the team that's there to keep you on the right track and guide you through it. That's Trajan Wealth, Trajan Wealth, not just any financial firm. They're your partners in securing your financial future. And Trajan Wealth is more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Jordan Reed, ESPN NFL draft and college football analyst, will join us here in just a second. I know it's not an uncommon thing to do, but it's draft season and it's Valentine's Day. So we're going to do draft crushes today. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm looking forward to hearing who Jordan Reed's is. He may have several. Obviously, we're through the first couple of phases of the pre-draft process. Indianapolis, the scouting combine lies ahead. Very exciting time, and we'll learn more about what the Titans specifically think of the quarterbacks, because then finally they'll have the opportunity to meet Cam Ward. That's why a lot of this conversation, even though we have plenty of time to talk about these things, it's a lot of spinning our wheels until we get to Indy, because until they have the opportunity to talk to Cam Ward, it's not really a conversation as to how much they do or do not like Cam Ward, other than what everybody has access to, which is the tape right now.
And that matters.
Okay.
You got nothing?
I thought you had more to say there.
I get they're not in the same room with him yet, but they probably have an idea of what they like or don't like about Cam Ward as a football player.
You can talk to people around the player in the lead up to the pre-draft interviews and these things, especially when, players like Cam Ward didn't attend the Senior Bowl and didn't have the opportunity to interview with teams at that point in time. But that's what Indianapolis is for, as well as the medicals. And we know that Jordan Reed will be doing exhaustive coverage leading up to the combine and through the combine into the draft season, as he continues his coverage as one of ESPN's draft and college football analysts. Jordan, thanks for hopping back on the show. Happy draft season.
Having me.
Yeah, as always. I think the last time we had you on was pre-draft last year. We spent a good deal of time talking about J.C. Latham, and I'm just curious. I don't know if you've thought much about it, or maybe thought about it in the lead up to talking with us, but the 2024 draft class that Rand Carthon put together here, ultimately it wasn't enough on the personnel side of things to save him from being relieved of his duties at the end of the season. But for the level of contribution that they had, whether it's Tavondre Sweat or J.C. Latham, Jarvis Brownlee, I wonder what somebody like you thought about the level of performance that they got out of those rookies.
Well, I always say if you're able to play 3 to 4 rookies, then you probably had a really good draft class, especially if you're playing them really early on, which the Titans was able to do. They were able to do last year. I thought they got a lot of production out of those guys, especially early on. Whenever you have those two picks like they do, especially in the trenches, you want to throw those guys out there and see if they're going to sink or swim. And both of those guys were able to swim last year. I thought J.C. Latham had some good play in some spots, and also Tavondre Sweat. For as much controversy as he had coming into training camp and even into the draft, I thought he did a good job of shaking a lot of those things off and being productive. But I think the one that was most surprising, especially this early on, was Jarvis Brownlee and how well he was able to contribute throughout last season. So them being able to get that many contributions from their rookie class so early on, I think it's a positive thing for the Titans.
Well, certainly Jarvis Brownlee was not thrilled when we talked to him on draft night about the idea that he went in the 5th round and some of the corners that went ahead of him. I think he used that as a particular source of motivation. And then talking about the Tavondre Sweat stuff, because to your point, that was a controversial choice. There were teams that did not have that player on their draft boards for a variety of different reasons, whether it be situations in Texas, obviously the driving under the influence situation in the lead up to the draft. Fans after the fact will say, well, he was a good player, so none of that stuff mattered. They made a big deal out of nothing. But for people like you, Jordan, who it's not just about the tape, but understanding the player and how they might fit at the next level, those things absolutely have to be taken into consideration no matter how it plays out.
Yeah, fans always get stuck on the field aspect with these players, but as a general manager and as a front office, you have to evaluate the person with their helmet off as well. And that's something the media, we don't get a whole bunch of access to really at the combine. We only get the podium sessions to talk to these players. Otherwise, we're leaning on sources and, position coaches and coaches that you speak to throughout the building. So we never really get to formally meet these players like these teams do, especially at the combine, what I like to call speed dating, where they meet with these guys class for 15 to 20 minutes to get to know the players and have their questions answered that they do have. So in totality, you have to make sure that you're evaluating the player not only with their helmet on, but also who this person is with their helmet off as well.
At Jordan_Reed is where you follow him. You can watch him on SportsCenter. You can hear him on the First Draft podcast. ESPN's draft analyst, one of ESPN's draft analysts, kind enough to give us some of his time on this Friday.
Jordan, Travis Hunter is a fascinating prospect for many, many reasons. And one of them is that everybody seems to have kind of their own curated opinion on what he is better at, wide receiver or corner, what would be a better fit for him, the extent of how much he might be able to play both sides in the NFL. Where do you land overall with Colorado's star playmaker, Travis Hunter?
Well, I have him as a corner. I would play him at cornerback full time, and then I would let him play about 15 to 20 plays at wide receiver as well. But speaking to a lot of scouts, they have the mindset of let's just get him in the building and let his development take care of itself. Just get this guy on the field just because he's such a rare talent. But if I had to choose one, I would play him as a corner and then I would sprinkle him in as a wide receiver. But I don't think you should limit him just because, and something that I think a lot of people are not thinking about is the NFL game, the pace of it is slower. And what I mean by that is teams are huddling more often, more so in the college game. I mean, you're seeing a guy conditioning wise, he averaged 124 snaps, which is a monstrous number, something that we really haven't seen since Champ Bailey when he was coming out in the late 90s out of Georgia. So if he can handle playing both sides, your job and your duty as a general manager and as a coach is to get the best 11 guys on the field. And if his conditioning shows that he can handle that and his body can hold up, let him be one of those 11 guys at all time.
So if he were to land in Tennessee, the Titans certainly could use him at corner, but the Titans are a lot deeper at corner in terms of the current state of the roster than they are a wide receiver. So if he were to primarily play wide receiver and then step in situationally at corner, is that viable, kind of the inverse of what you're saying? Because we were looking the other week for examples of something like this. And, of course, Bill Belichick did it a few times with the Patriots. We've got tape of Julian Edelman tackling Vince Young as the Eagles quarterback. But apart from a few plays like that, it's hard to find any player that situationally would step in on the defensive side after primarily playing on offense. Is that something that you see as a possibility with Hunter? And are there any examples you might be able to think of?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. There's just very few, if any, examples of a player playing wide receiver full time and then going over and playing corner, which is why I think that's another feather in the cap of the corner full time and then sprinkling him some plays at wide receiver, just because there's just not a lot of examples of a player playing wide receiver full time and then him playing sparingly at corner. And then how do you decide what plays he goes in on? Is it in the red zone? Is it the open field? So that's another challenge as far as just playing him at wide receiver and then mixing him in at corner.
Jordan Reed of ESPN is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Jordan, how do you go about scouting the quarterbacks? Because obviously you're paying attention to the college game year round, but do you go back and, for example, look at last year's quarterback draft class at all to kind of gauge, okay, heading into this class relative to expectation, because that's obviously a big talking point, whether it's important to people like you or not, but I wonder just what that process looks like specifically for you, or is it just, the games that these guys have played at the college level?
Well, for me personally, I think each class is its own entity just because when you compare those classes, it kind of clouds your judgment. And I think that's what's going on with the top of this quarterback class this year, just because everybody wants to compare it to last year's quarterback class, and last year's class was great. But this year's class, I think, has been knocked a little bit more than what it is deserving. I should say the top two are being knocked a little bit more than what they're deserving, just because everybody wants to compare it to that exceptional class, outlier class, I should say, where we had 6 guys go inside the top 12. So I'm a little bit higher on the top 2 in this class than maybe some other people, but you just have to treat each class as its own entity just because it clouds your judgment.
Does it, for these 2 players specifically, obviously Cam Ward at Miami and Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado, how important is geography for what you think their level of success might be? Because obviously these are all projections and there's no exact science, but it does seem like that conversation has had a little bit more around these 2 specific quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to take everything into the equation, but Cam Ward, he's been all over the place. Pretty much, he's been in Incarnate Word. He's been at Washington State and then also most recently at Miami. So he's experienced all different types of weather and seasons and everything. And then Shador, he's been at Jackson State in Mississippi and then also going over in Colorado. So these guys have experienced everything during their college careers.
Where's the biggest, I guess let's start with Cam Ward. Where's the biggest jump in his skill set that you saw when you watch him from Incarnate Word to Washington State to Miami? Like, where did you see him start to refine his tools?
Yeah, that's a great question. It seems like the game that everybody really got on board with him making the quote unquote leap was that Florida game where he was just throwing the ball all over the yard. He had a crossbody one in the back of the end zone, what I thought was one of the better throws from him this season. But I just think the control and decision making at times was better for him this year, just because even at Incarnate Word, going back and watching the tape there in that Washington State, he had so many chaotic moments just because the talent around him wasn't as good as what we saw at Miami. And I think the talent around him made his decision making better just because he's playing with guys like Xavier Restrepo and Elijah Arroyo, guys we're talking about that are going to be drafted day 2, day 3 area. The players that he was playing with, I should mention Damian Martinez as well. He never had a back like that at Washington State or at Incarnate Word. So the players and the pieces he got around him were better. So it really helped his decision making and his control. Now, there still is some moments that do leave you scratching your head with him, but there weren't as many as what we saw in his previous seasons.
What is the best thing that Shador Sanders does to you?
There's a lot. I think the ball placement with him, the accuracy, and then just how well he does see the field when he does play in the rhythm. And I think his A-plus trait is his toughness, though. I think he's by far the toughest quarterback in this year's class. And yes, I know he had the most sacks taken the past 2 seasons of any quarterback, but there's a lot of quarterbacks that wouldn't have even thought about getting up from some of the shots and some of the hits that he took, even going back to his days at Jackson State. So his toughness, his mental toughness, his football IQ, and then just the ball placement when he does get it out on time, I think those are some of the traits that I think are really good about him.
For the audience, could you differentiate between ball placement and accuracy? Because I think sometimes people might hear that and get it conflated.
Yeah, I love talking about this. I'm a former quarterback, so I think completion percentage is one of the biggest fallacies when you're talking about quarterback evaluation, just because you can have guys that throw a ton of perimeter screens and they have a completion percentage that's, low to mid 70s. So you really have to go to the tape to really show or really learn the accuracy of a quarterback. And what I mean by Shador is, let's say that he's throwing a slant pass. So when you're throwing a slant pass, you really, depending on the placement of defense, you want to keep those guys in stride and really throw it. The target area is really the front of the face mask or the front number. And Shador does a really good job of that. While there's some other quarterbacks that they may throw it at the middle of their body or even behind them, and that guy makes a circus catch. But in the box score, it still goes down as a catch. And it's a positive towards their completion percentage. So completion percentage can be a lie, especially when those guys have a high completion percentage that are throwing a lot of screens or a lot of underneath things. But with Shador, he does a great job of throwing it away from the defense or throwing it in adequate positions to where his receivers can get yards after the catch.
Jordan Reed of ESPN here, making us smarter at Jordan_Reed on Twitter.
So, Jordan, the Titans have a massive need at right tackle, among many others. We have spent so much time talking about the quarterbacks and the top of this draft, understandably so, with the number 1 overall pick. But what can you tell us about the general state of the offensive tackle depth in this draft class, specifically right tackle in that day 2, day 3 range, in terms of the viability of finding a potential year 1 starter in that time frame?
Well, I think there's some good options in this class, but what's really interesting to me about this year's draft class that's different from last year's is that we don't have a lot of true tackle bodies. And last year, you had a litany of guys that that were going to be day 1 starters at tackle. You guys got a great one in J.C. Latham. We had Amarius Mims. The list goes on and on of the guys last year that we just knew that were going to be bona fide tackles. But this year, you're kind of on the fence about a lot of guys. Maybe you kick them inside. Maybe they are tackles. But I've always had a thought process of you should allow guys to show that they can play tackle first, or that they cannot play tackle first before you kick him inside. So I think that's a common theme with this year's draft class, of where there's a lot of guys that you're kind of on the fence about if they're a tackle, but they potentially could be better inside at guard. But just looking at my list of some guys that I think could be there for them in the second round that could be viable, Anthony Belton from NC State is one name I think that would be a really good fit for them. I thought he was really impressive down at the Senior Bowl, and projections are kind of a little bit all over the place with him right now. There's some people that like him more so in the third round, but I think he's going to end up going in the second round. Wyatt Milam from West Virginia is another name I think will be really popular with Titan fans. Another guy that's probably on the fence of he could kick inside, could play some offensive tackle. And then the last one that's a bit of a polarizing prospect is Cameron Williams out of Texas, who I'm a little bit lower on than the consensus just because he's so raw as a prospect right now. Really, really young, only 21 years old, but massive frame at 6'6", 335 plus pounds. Does need a little bit of time as far as development, but is going to be a really athletic tester. And I think there's going to be a lot of offensive line coaches that feel as if they can mold him to eventually be a starter maybe a year or two down the road.
Certainly Bill Callahan has that kind of skill set in his bag as an offensive line coach, veteran offensive line coach. Jordan Reed here with us on 104.5 The Zone. So if I give you number one overall, are you sticking and picking? Are you trading out? And if you're staying, what are you taking?
Oh, man, you put me on the spot.
Yeah.
I think this comes down to one question for Mike Berganzi, and one question only. Do you want to tie yourself in year one to one of these quarterbacks? And if it were me, I would take Travis Hunter. Just because I feel most comfortable about him. He's my number one overall player, and I think he's such a rare talent. You just can't pass on a player like that. But if he's comfortable tying himself to a quarterback in year one of his regime with the Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward would be my pick, just because I think the traits, the upside, I think he's just a complete package of what you want at the position. And I just think a lot of people spend way too much time with trying to project these guys into certain schemes, whether he fits a Callahan scheme, playing on time, being accurate and in rhythm, just because, like we saw last year, if you're a great coach, you really cater your scheme to the quarterback that you feel comfortable drafting.
With that, Jordan, obviously you'll have so many different players that you're going through in the course of the pre-draft process. Combine's still ahead, which will add additional insight and information into your analysis. But is there a player that you haven't gotten to talk about yet that you really enjoy, or a draft crush in particular that's caught your eye as you continue to study these guys' tape?
Oh man, give me a position.
Let's go running back. It's an interesting running back class.
Yeah, Devin Neal out of Kansas. I'm a big fan of Devin Neal. I've been able to see him play in person. I saw him play against Illinois, which was one of his better games of the year. Just his combination of his skill set of being able to catch out of the backfield, run between the tackles. He has awesome contact balance, really good vision. I have an early third round grade on him. I think he's going to end up going in that range. And I know the Titans don't have a third round pick right now. They have 2 4s. But if he's there for them, why not take him? And I know they're loaded at running back, but if they want to add another to the stable, Devin Neal would be a fantastic choice. I think he's going to be an awesome pro.
Hey, Jordan, thank you so much for the time. And thanks for all the great work throughout the course of the college football season and the pre-draft process. It's really awesome and insightful to see the way that you break it down for dummies like us and help us understand what teams are looking for and specifically how you go about scouting these players. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys, as always.
That's Jordan Reed of ESPN with us on 104.5 The Zone. So some pretty good insight there. And I think it's a fair kind of question that he's posed on behalf of Mike Borgonzi that we can flesh out throughout the course of the show. Do you want to tie yourself to a quarterback in year one? Because in the same way that we talk about clocks being sped up on coaches or players or something like that, would that not kind of be the thing that jumpstarts how you evaluate Mike Borgonzi the most if he immediately ties himself to one of these quarterbacks?
Yeah, and we don't believe that the current Titans philosophy will be to take a quarterback because they have the need at quarterback. Mm-hmm. If we're to listen to everything that they say. So to the point of the running backs, that class is loaded.
I know.
I mean, there are so many good backs in 2025.
Because we're going to do draft crushes, and I asked him about running backs because one of mine's a running back, which we'll get to later on in the show. But really good stuff there from Jordan Reed. We'll have to see if we can follow up with him around maybe post-combine. We'll let him get through the combine before we ask him to visit with us next. Speaking of next, what we've got coming up, do you have a stat of the day?
I sure do. A couple of big games, couple in-state matchups happening around the SEC tomorrow.
That's next. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is an incredibly useful resource and has been helping guys for over a decade when they need ED treatment, because that can be a thing that, may come with some misconceptions around it. For example, you may get your own treatment. You may seek pills and take the pills for a period of time and see immediate results, but over time, that may wear off and you may be stuck with the same issue. If you're dealing with any of those problems or just generally want to understand more about how your body changes as you age, the Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you. They specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. It makes them the experts in the field, and they have access to multiple protocols and options to treat ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. The Tennessee Men's Clinic protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size, stamina, and everything else in between. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090.
Bit of a rivalry weekend in SEC basketball. 3 big in-state matchups happening. Obviously, locally, Vanderbilt heads to Tennessee for a rematch from that January 18th, 76-75 win by Vanderbilt at Memorial Gym. The Vols looking to avoid getting swept by Vanderbilt for the first time since when, Buck?
Oh, I have no idea.
It's been about a decade. 2015-16, Rick Barnes' first season was the last time Vanderbilt swept Tennessee in the regular season. The Vols...
Was that still Kevin Stallings?
That probably was.
That would have been.
Yeah.
I think Kevin, because that was the first year that I moved here. I think Kevin Stallings was still the basketball coach.
Yes, I believe you are correct. Tennessee did get another crack at Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament that year and got the revenge there. But that was the last time Vanderbilt, that was Stallings, last year at Vanderbilt. That was the last time Vanderbilt completed a regular season sweep against Tennessee. Ole Miss and Mississippi State go head-to-head, 5 p.m. tip on Saturday, the Egg Bowl on the basketball court. And then, of course... Number 1, Auburn. Number 2, Alabama. Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa. 3 p.m. tip-off on ESPN. The first time in SEC basketball history that there has been a 1 versus 2 matchup in the regular season in the conference. Biggest regular season game in SEC men's basketball history. In terms of the level these teams are playing at. They both feel like borderline locks.
Why does he do one of these every week? The biggest in history.
Okay, name a bigger one.
No, I know. It's just funny. Like, you always seem to find these biggest moments in history, like the week of.
When's the last time I did that?
Last week.
What was it?
Worst Super Bowl in history.
I did not say worst Super Bowl in history. I definitely did not say that.
I'm thinking of that.
It's never happened before.
No, it's a big game.
Never had a 1 versus 2. And the fact that it's Auburn and Bama, 2 borderline locks to be number 1 overall seeds in the NCAA tournament. It's a huge game. There's so much buzz for this game in Alabama. I have no problem saying biggest regular season SEC men's basketball game in the history of the conference. But locally, obviously, the interest is in Tennessee versus Vanderbilt. Noon tip-off. You can hear it here on The Zone. 11:30 is the Vol Network pregame. Huge game for both teams. Vanderbilt's still looking for that first quad 1 road win, which would go a long way in helping their NCAA tournament case. Tennessee currently is a number 5 overall seed, according to the latest bracketology from Joe Lunardi and ESPN. When I think back to that first matchup and the biggest differences in that game, the turning point came late in the first half when Zakai Ziegler picked up either his second or third foul, got into some early foul trouble. Rick Barnes pulls him with about 7 minutes to go in the first half. Vanderbilt goes on a 20-9 run and grabs a 6-point lead going into halftime. Commodores never relinquished that lead. Tennessee was just out of rhythm, disconnected on offense in that 7-minute stretch. They turned the ball over 3 times, and they have figured some things out. They were forced to when Ziegler missed that Florida game, and Gainey was able to take over running the offense at the 1. They have more proof of concept that they can handle things without Ziegler totally carrying the load on offense. But that was the turning point then. But the thing that the game kind of came down to for me was offensive rebounding. Tennessee has been fantastic on the offensive boards all season long. They typically are. Vanderbilt out-rebounded Tennessee 12-8 on the offensive glass in that game. Their bigs didn't play great, Vanderbilt's, but they did a great job boxing out and pulling down some of those important offensive rebounds, leading to second chance points in a 1-point victory at Memorial Gym. This rivalry it feels like it's back in full force, which is great.
Yeah.
But the stakes are high for both teams in Knoxville on Saturday.
Certainly higher for Vanderbilt. They've got to find some wins down the stretch to really solidify their resume, to your point about them not having a quad 1 road win to date. And Tennessee, I don't know, do we think they look vulnerable, or are we treating the Kentucky thing as an anomaly? Because Kentucky shooting 50% from 3 in both games feels to me, not inconsequential. Like, it's obviously a mark against Tennessee that they were not able to handle business against a shorthanded Wildcats team in games that I think are critical, especially at this point in the season. Vandy, though, it's going to take them shooting above their heads essentially from 3. Because in the last game that Vanderbilt played, obviously Auburn was going to outman them. Auburn is the better basketball team, but they were 3 of 17. From 3. That can't happen. That's 17%. I saw John Glennon point out on Twitter. This is something that on the whole, the season, they're shooting 32.5% from three, and that was a huge part of Kentucky's game. Also,
facing Vanderbilt. On the whole, that's what Vanderbilt is shooting?
Vanderbilt is shooting that from three this season. And that's something that obviously Tennessee struggled with against Kentucky. That's also something that Tennessee struggled to make their threes. That was an uncharacteristic performance. We've seen it happen now twice. Not quite to the volume of the first Kentucky loss, but you get my point. Like, to me, it's as simple as Vandy's got to hit more threes than they usually do, and Tennessee has to hit their uncontested shots.
Both teams coming off just a dreadful three-point shooting performance. Yeah. Both Tennessee and Vandy hitting 3 3-pointers in their last outing. That's insane.
Yeah.
That was a difference in favor of Tennessee in the first game. Not by much. Vols were 10 of 21 from three against Vanderbilt. Vandy 8 of 21 in that game. So, again, a lot of it came down to the offensive glass, second chance points for Vanderbilt, and just making winning plays in key moments late. You think about the block on Chaz Lanier at the end of the game, and obviously Lanier missing the free throw that would have tied it with just a couple seconds left on the clock and would have sent the game to overtime, where Tennessee would have had all the momentum after coming all the way back from that second half deficit. So I'm expecting a good game in Knoxville. Both teams need a bounce back performance. You're right in that Vanderbilt probably needs it more in order to just continue to make their case for the NCAA tournament.
But Vandy really needs it.
Yeah, we don't worry about Tennessee in terms of getting into the big dance.
Right.
But it will feel like just the ups and downs of this season in SEC play for Tennessee. They got to get the pendulum swinging back up again after that performance against Kentucky. The offensive inconsistencies are concerning. Like, I get that you can call it an anomaly. 50% from three was Kentucky against the number one 3-point defense in Tennessee in 2 games. But it's just the ups and downs. And Rick Barnes had some really interesting things to say after that Kentucky game, talking about, if these guys are kind of emotionally prepared to deal with those moments late. Igor Milicic Jr. talked a little bit about that. He said, I think we kind of got in our heads a little bit and weren't focused enough on the defensive side. We tried to get it all back on the offensive side. So this is a pretty pivotal moment in the season for Tennessee to just kind of mature at the right time, because you want to be playing your best basketball a month from now.
One of these hated Kentucky basketball fan, Tennessee football fan people, one of my buddies came up to me this morning.
Yeah, like you, in Indiana football or Indiana basketball, Notre Dame football.
No, that is acceptable. What I've just described,
that's acceptable.
No, what I've just described is repulsive.
It sounds like you're describing the same things to me.
I don't think so. It's within the same state. But anyway, came up to me this morning and at the gym, and it was one of those things where he was chirping me a little bit about Mark Pope and obviously everything going on with Mike Woodson, and I'm just miserable generally about basketball. But he said something that, I thought rung as true as anything I've heard about the basketball season, which was it's really just about Auburn and Alabama at this point.
Yeah.
At the top of the SEC. Like, everybody's just kind of duking it out for third place behind these two teams. Obviously, somebody's going to come out the loser on Saturday in the game between those two teams. But to your point, it's a huge conference game between the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. And there's an argument to be made that Alabama's slighted right now as the number 2 team in the country because they have been playing at such a high level. I am fascinated to see that game specifically. I get what you're saying about there being more interest locally in Tennessee Vanderbilt, but I don't know. A lot of people are going to be tuned in for this game.
I can't wait for this game. Nothing speaks to the depth of the conference this year. We talk about it ad nauseum. Probably tired of hearing us talk about how good the SEC is this year.
I'm tired of it, but it's true.
But nothing speaks to the depth of this conference this year more than the fact that this is the first time ever that there's a 1 versus 2 matchup in the SEC, and it's Auburn and Alabama. It's not Kentucky. It's not Florida. It's not Tennessee. It's Auburn and Alabama, right? Not Arkansas, who's made a Final Four, won a championship in their history. So it's going to be electric, 3 p.m. tip. But again, Vols and Vandy at noon. As good as the SEC is, as we know, they are 500 since January 4th. Kentucky head coach Mark Pope was asked about this the other day.
Stop it.
Coach, everybody talks about the SEC being the best conference in college basketball, but the conference is just 500 since conference play started. What do you make of that?
I think it's been a really disappointing start to conference play. I feel like we should, I feel like we're not living up to the expectations, just being at 500 as a conference. And I just, I'm kind of looking around at the other programs in the league, but like, guys, we got to pick this up. This is embarrassing. And so we'll find a way. I believe in this league. I think we definitely have an upside, and we're going to work really hard to get there.
I like that from Mark
Please
Pope.
don't make me like Mark Pope.
He is likable.
I don't
hate
want
say
to
it.
like the Kentucky basketball coach.
I know. I'm with you. And
Come on.
And he's a Kentucky basketball legend as
I
a
know.
player, too. Like,
It's just,
but he's got
I
good
have
energy.
so many reasons to hate this man, and he's delightful.
I'm with
and
you.
also, like, how awful is it to be that person that asked that question and then just to be publicly laughed at?
Oh, no.
That was a bit.
That was a bit. Yeah, the person asking the question was
I thought it was
jokingly-
real.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no, I thought that's why we were playing
I
it.
think you'd get chewed up and spat out of the press room covering Kentucky basketball if you asked a question like that.
I don't know. There's a lot of students that do these
Fair
things,
enough.
too.
But no.
you know?
I think just with the giggles that immediately followed, it felt like everyone in the room was in on
Do
the
we
bit.
know this? Do we know this to for sure be a bit? Because Carl Ravitch, obviously not treating it as a bit. Archie Miller, not treating it as a bit.
The Ravitch thing, obviously, it went around. Everybody talked about it after the fact. It very much felt like everybody was in on it.
We don't know this.
Mark Pope had some fun with it.
These are assumptions
Yeah,
being
we are
made.
talking
This is
about
reckless
Kentucky.
speculation. We have sound for this.
We are talking about Kentucky. But some good fun there from Mark Pope. So Jacob Polacek, who is a KSR reporter, our arch nemesis, who he defeated in the Barrett Sports Media rankings, in the most recent ranking. He tweeted yesterday, there's been a lot of talk about the SEC being the best conference, but the league is still 500 since the start of conference play. I asked Mark Pope about it to get to the bottom of this. So, yes, everyone was in on the bit.
Thank God. Coming up next, a 3-time Super Bowl champion in the NFL is thinking about hanging it up. We'll talk about that. We'll have Coach Mack. We got things for people to win later, Jackson?
Yep, but you got to tune in to find out.
Oh, that's at 11:45 for Friday Fire. A lot of fun in the second hour next.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. As the Eagles Super Bowl parade is in progress as we speak, Pro Football Talk reported this morning that the NFL is eyeing Las Vegas for the 2029 Super Bowl. That would be the first year the Titans in Nashville would be eligible to host the Super Bowl if Nissan Stadium does indeed open, the new Nissan Stadium, in 2027. College hoops this weekend. Tennessee and Vanderbilt meet for the second time this season. The Commodores travel to Knoxville tomorrow. Tennessee looking to avenge a 76-75 loss at Memorial Gym January 18th. Tip-off is at noon. Vol Network coverage starts at 11:30 right here on The Zone. And college baseball action kicks off this weekend. Tennessee starts its national title defense with a series against Hofstra. First pitch in Knoxville is at 3:30. The Vandy boys are in the MLB Desert Invitational, starting with a matchup against Grand Canyon tonight at 7. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour is upon us. The Eagles Super Bowl 59 victory parade has just started in Philadelphia. So far, no boat parade like we saw in Tampa, where Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski are just chucking the Super Bowl trophy back to one another. I haven't seen anybody shotgun a beverage yet, though it's early. People clearly have drinks in hand.
Looks freezing up there.
It looks unpleasant. All right, if the Vols won the national championship, would you attend the parade? And I assume there would be a parade in Knoxville.
Yeah, the baseball team, their parade went down Gay Street in downtown Knoxville.
So you would go?
If I was available, yeah. If it was a good weekend, be a good time.
Sure. I just like in inclement weather like that. And it's not like Times Square where people are going to the bathroom where they stand because they're waiting so long for their place to just be a part of the ball drop or whatever. But like these things are, it's an ordeal. It ends up being a full day affair. I know Philadelphia schools are out for the parade. It's you don't know when the next time you're going to see it. Something like this is certainly, if you're the Titans, it would be a first time experience. But it's a big commitment.
You know, people in New York on New Year's apparently wear diapers.
Yes, I do. I have been to Times Square on New Year's Eve. It's an unpleasant experience.
It sounds like the worst experience that anybody could possibly have.
At any given moment, a drunk tourist could just throw up next to you or on you, and there's nowhere to go. Or hours upon hours.
Oh, yeah, nowhere to go. I was going to say that's the case on Broadway.
Oh, sure. But not like on your shoulder as they then lean up on you after they slump down in their drunken stupor.
I was in New York 2 weeks ago, and my buddy that lives up there, we were walking through Times Square, and he told me that people literally have to wear diapers because, like you said, you're standing out there for 8, 9, 10 hours, maybe longer. What a terrible, terrible experience that sounds like. This looks fun in Philly, except for the cold.
Cold, not great. The news item that Lucas had in his update, the idea, Pro Football Talk right now is reporting that the 2029 Super Bowl is expected to go to Las Vegas. We'll see if that ends up holding true. Right now, you have Super Bowls scheduled for Santa Clara, Los Angeles, and Atlanta before 2029. 2029 would be the first year that the new Nissan Stadium would be eligible to host a Super Bowl if things open up on time. And, there's some reasonable expectation of delays in these kind of things. But I just drove past it. I went to breakfast in East this morning. I drove past it on my way in. Every time I look at it, I'm more and more surprised by how much of it, is already done. And we're coming up on, the 1-year anniversary from them breaking ground. It was like Combine Week, right? Because Carthon and Callahan came back early to be a part of the photo op.
Was it Combine Week?
It was Combine Week. Because I remember.
That's right.
They left early because, ceremonial groundbreaking, and I get all that. But I remember having some reservations at the time, being like, do you really have to leave the Combine early to do that? That specifically? I get, you still have people in Indianapolis to report back to you. But anyway.
I was there. I remember.
What, the groundbreaking?
Yes.
Why?
Oh,
Boots on the ground reporting?
I believe it was boots on the ground reporting.
Look at you, Big J Journo. So 2030 at that point would be the earliest that a new Nissan Stadium would host a Super Bowl. You had many people this year advocating to put it in New Orleans perpetually because how well that city does the Super Bowl. Miami has also been praised for its ability to host a Super Bowl because it's not like on South Beach. It's basically, it's somewhere between South Beach and Fort Lauderdale and Miami Gardens that they would host the Super Bowl. Nashville would immediately put itself into the top tier of that list if they got the opportunity to do something like this. I mean, there's no question. It's just a matter of, is it going to be the first opportunity or will it be a little later than you expect? Because most people go in with the expectation that if you build a new stadium, after the 2-year waiting period, you would be able to host the Super Bowl. It's a small delay, but it's a delay.
It doesn't have to be immediate.
Usually it is. These things have been done this way since clubs started building new stadiums. Like there's an agreement, in essence, with as long as we meet the seating capacity, and certainly once we get this thing up and running, that within a requisite time frame.
Yeah, SoFi Stadium got it pretty quick.
You would get to host the Super Bowl. Vegas certainly got it very quickly, and we'll get it again. According to these reports, it would be twice in a 5-year span, which would put it on the same kind of rotation as Los Angeles currently is.
You think Travis Kelce will be playing by then?
2029?
Yeah.
I mean, so he's apparently of two minds on this, to hear him talk before the Super Bowl and after the Super Bowl, two different stories. Should we talk about before the Super Bowl, Jackson, where Travis Kelce was asked about his future, and it was, at the time, contemplating many more years to come.
Where will I be in 3 years? Oh man, I don't know. Hopefully, still playing football. I love doing this. I love coming into work every day, and I feel like I still got a lot of good football left in me. But we'll see what happens. I know I've been setting myself up for other opportunities in my life, and that's always been the goal. Knowing that football only lasts for so long, you got to find a way to get into another career, into another profession, and I've been doing that in my off seasons. But for the most part, I plan on being a Kansas City Chief and playing football.
Okay. That was before the 40-22 ass kicking that the Chiefs endured. Have you seen the mic'd up stuff from the Chiefs?
Yeah, talking about the 28-3. Like, hey, Eagles did it. Or, no, Patriots did it 28-3 when it was, 27 to, what was the score at that point? Nothing?
24
to nothing?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. They're hyping themselves up and...
Which,
it's
what you got to do.
You expect, yeah.
And had they come back, all of those clips would have been all over the place in a highlight montage, and the doubted Chiefs come back and win the Super Bowl. It didn't happen that way. This is Travis Kelce on the New Heights podcast with his brother Jason after the Super Bowl.
It's going to sting. I know everybody wants to know whether or not I'm playing next year, and right now I'm just kicking everything down the road. I'm kicking every can I can down the road, and I'm not making any crazy decisions, but right now the biggest thing is just being there for my teammates and being there for my coaches, understanding, that there's a lot that goes into this thing. I've been fortunate over the past 5-6 years. I've played more football than anybody. Yeah. And it's because the people that are in that building and the fact that we keep going to these AFC championships and these Super Bowls, and that means I'm playing an extra 3 games more than everybody else in the entire league, and that's a lot of wear and tear on your body, and it's a lot of time spent in the building, focusing on your craft, focusing on the task at hand, every challenge that you set up for yourself, and it's that process can be grueling. It can weigh on you. It can make you better, and it can drive you crazy at the same time. And right now, it's one of those things where it was kind of driving me crazy this year. And I think that it happens as you kind of tail off towards the back nine of your career, as the SVP would say. Is it's as you see yourself or not feel yourself have the success that you once used to have. Man, it's a tough pill to swallow. And then on top of that, to not be there in the biggest moments, knowing your team's counting on you, man. Those are all extremely hard things to, it's just a tough reality. And, I think, I'm going to take some time to figure it out. And, I think I owe it to my teammates that if I do come back, that it's going to be something that, it's a wholehearted decision. I'm not half-assing it, and I'm fully here for them. And, I think, I think I could play. It's just whether or not I'm motivated or it's the best decision for me as a man, as a human, as a person to take on all that responsibility.
Well, that is a significantly different tone.
Yeah, if I come back.
So two things. Travis Kelce, front runner, clearly.
I mean, I could see how, what was it, 7 straight AFC Championship games?
It's a lot.
Game appearances can keep you inspired to keep going. Guy's played in 25 postseason games in his career.
Sure, but it takes one bad loss like that in the biggest game of the year after you've fought and scratched and clawed and worked as hard as humanly possible to make yourself available. And again, I know that most people out there hear multi-million-dollar athlete, soon-to-be television superstar Travis Kelce talking about the grueling, time and effort that it takes to play tight end in the NFL, roll their eyes and say, well, that's what the money's for. But it's true to an extent. I mean, you could talk about just the extended wear and tear of the postseason and achieving at that level. The Golden State Warriors are a great example of this. Now, they had some more combustible elements. Kevin Durant is obviously a very polarizing personality. Draymond Green is a very polarizing personality, and there were some reasons why that probably frayed a little faster than some people might have wanted it to. But I say, tongue-in-cheek, joking, Travis Kelce front runner. But the other part of this is I'm reminded of a quote from Brian Arakpo, Titans legend. He got up there at his retirement press conference and started talking about as soon as you start to think about retirement, it's over.
Right.
As a football player, once that thought even remotely creeps into your mind, it is so difficult to get that edge back because of it's manic, the way that these people have to prepare themselves year round, the time, the effort, the energy, the time away from family, especially as you start to get up there in age. Maybe Travis Kelce is thinking about a life beyond football. Certainly it would be feasible given what him and his brothers' future media careers. I mean, for Jason, current
media career.
Has there ever been a famous center like Jason Kelce out there? Like Nick Mangold had a couple of commercials, but I don't remember anything like this.
Yeah, he might be the most famous center of all time.
He's a superstar as a center. That doesn't happen. And
yeah, why? Why is that?
As a center?
Would it be because offensive linemen don't get the credit they deserve?
Oh, I don't know if that's true. I just think
the answer is yes. That's why.
Lucas, a lot of them don't have the personality of Jason Kelce. You know how singularly.
Yeah, and people don't know who they are. That's another part of it.
Or they have the personality of your shoes.
Kelce,
more often than not. Have you talked to many offensive linemen? Most of them just want to hit something and eat.
I don't think it's a very mean thing for you to say about Ben Jones. I think Ben has a fantastic personality.
Benjamin does have a wonderful personality, but you were also the person that kept asking Peter Skoronski about pizza toppings for 20 minutes.
And he was great. Travis Kelce had a career low in yards this year and touchdowns. 823, which is a pretty good career low. Yards and 3 touchdowns.
So it would not be shocking for somebody in Travis Kelce's position to let that thought creep in. But once that thought creeps in, these guys will tell you it's very, very difficult to bounce back from that, especially heading into an offseason where you just took a huge L. 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll get to your phone calls coming up next. Also, Coach Mack will join us, and we'll talk a little bit more about the draft. We'll see what Mack has to say about Travis Hunter, given the clip that we just got from Jordan Reed of ESPN. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio will join us momentarily. We've got Friday Fire here in about 25 minutes from now. Jackson will tell you what the prize from the nebulous mystery bucket is this week. Don't call yet for the prizes. We'll get to that here in just a few minutes from now. Talk some draft with Mac. The Super Bowl parade, they are showing highlights from previous Super Bowl parades. The aforementioned Tampa parade, boat parade, is being shown with Brady hurling his 7th Super Bowl Lombardi trophy to Gronk from boat to boat.
The best part about that was his daughter sitting right behind him going, Dad, no!
Look at his kids.
She was terrified.
His kids are so distraught at that is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. That Super Bowl parade celebration for the COVID Bucks in 2020. Brady chucking Lombardi trophies from boat to boat. Mac joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Mac, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen a celebrating championship team do?
No, well, I mean, they televise them all, so there's not a whole lot that you can hide anymore. But I just heard what you said. Brady and Gronk chucking the trophy across boats is pretty cool.
It's just so casual. You know, it's just my 7th Lombardi trophy. I don't care anymore. Here, Gronk, catch. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it was like a big frat party at Lake Mead.
I also would like to find out. I know, Mac, you are somebody who consumes fine tequila from time to time. Introduced me to one of my favorite tequilas now, Casa Dragonis. That's really, really good stuff. So maybe some avocado tequila on Tom Brady in his next endeavors. Coach Mac's visits presented by the best in the business, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. That's Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So, Mac, we are in the speculation period of the pre-draft process because we're just waiting for the combine so we can learn more about these players. But for people like you, you're grinding tape, you're continuing to evaluate prospects. As teams take this time, what I guess is the focus right now for organizations in this, we'll call it a at least news cycle lull from Senior Bowl to Combine?
Well, I mean, most of them are locked into pretty deep draft meetings because you've got all the invites now to the Combine, and so everybody's you know what they're doing. The Titans are doing. I mean, they're locked down pretty good, for most of the day, and they're going over everybody that they're gonna look at, who they want to talk to. This is an important time because now you're starting to narrow it down once you get through your meetings, and these meetings take extensive amount of time. Then, who you want to zero in on, who you're going to look at all down the line as far as the positions go. And then you lock into who you want to have interviews with. You've got 18 minutes now. They've moved that time frame at the Combine to 18 minutes, but you zero in on that, and then you start going to the schools too. So, I mean, this is an important time to start identifying who you really want to zero in on.
So with that, Mac, we have the Combine invite list, as you mentioned, and there are a variety of different names. One of the more interesting talking points is Travis Hunter listed officially as a defensive back. He is expected to do some offensive drills during his Combine workouts at this point. Listed as a DB, obviously has a diverse skill set, really one of the most rare athletic abilities that we've seen in college football since Champ Bailey. Jordan Reed brought that up with us earlier in the late 90s. For you and Travis Hunter, what drills are you most interested in seeing him do as a defensive back and then as a wide receiver?
Well, I mean, they're gonna. He's with the defensive back group, but you're right. He will do some receiver drills. They will throw to him. I mean, he's got a very unique skill set. I think he will be drafted into the league, as a corner, and then be able to take some reps at the receiver position. I think he will be able to do both in the league. Now, not going to play 102 snaps a game. I mean, you do. I mean, you bring up Bailey. I mean, if you remember back in the early 2000s, Bill Belichick had a player that wasn't a number one draft pick, but a guy named Troy Brown out of Marshall that played both ways extensively for, a long time in this league, and especially for some really good teams up there. So there's guys that can do it. I think this guy is one that can do it. He's got a unique athletic ability. I mean, the guy's got great spatial awareness. He's quick twitch. His hand-eye coordination is really, really fabulous when you just watch the way he's able to track the ball, both as a quarterback and then as a receiver. Basically, as a receiver, what he did was just, run fast and get open. So to me, you draft him as a corner. He'll be a high-end corner, but you can use him in this league also on offense.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, kind enough to visit with us. TennesseeTitans.com is where you can keep up with everything that the Titans radio crew is doing during this offseason. You can also subscribe to the official Titans podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
We were talking about that with Jordan Reed, ESPN NFL draft analyst, in the first hour, Coach, that there's not much of a sample size of players in the NFL that primarily played offense, contributing on defense, but you can find guys along the way that have done the inverse of that, like you were just talking about. How much harder of a transition do you think that can be from primarily playing receiver to stepping in situationally at corner versus primarily playing defensive back and stepping in for certain packages on offense?
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier. I mean, he's got a great example of a guy that coached him, both at Jackson State and at Colorado, and Deion Sanders. Deion was a two-way guy, in this league, but he was a corner. I mean, he was a primary corner because the fact of the matter is, the receiving part of it, there's a lot that goes into it as far as the timing and all, having to be, put in there. I mean, if you're really going to develop as a receiver, there's a lot of timing issues that go on. To me, going from defense to offense, it's just an easier transition, and plus it's an easier transition to make during a ball game. I mean, that's the thing, because you've got to look at it during a ball game. I mean, if you've got a guy that is primarily playing a receiver, but then when are you going to put him in, as a DB? What packages is he going to play in? How does that package work as far as with the game plan going? Just to me, that transition is a lot smoother and it's a lot more equitable during the game. And plus, the National Football League game, I mean, you don't have as much no-huddle stuff. You don't have any of that stuff, going on. It's an easier thing to do, and it's more practical to do from the DB to the receiver rather than from a primary receiver than to play defensive back in the system.
So, Coach, as we continue to talk about the draft, obviously free agency is what's going to come first. How are teams preparing for free agency relative to their preparation for the combine in the pre-draft process? And how much of that is evaluating guys that are not technically available yet but could come available at certain positions of need? How do you balance that out this time of year?
Well, every club's got a department that is the pro personnel department, and that's really all they do all year is evaluate rosters, evaluate entire rosters. I mean, you divide it up. However you divide your groups up, the teams that they're responsible for, and they run a weekly tab on those teams, where they are injury-wise, where they are salary cap-wise, where they are. They work the entire roster all the way through the practice squads. Who's available? What they've done. I mean, that nowadays you have whole staff responsible for that. So that's what they're looking at. There's no surprises as far as to clubs because they're very detailed and they've got enough people to cover that. And as I said, that's an ongoing process. It doesn't just start when the season ends. Lucas, that process has been going on since training camp.
I bring this up, Mac, not to, obviously we can't speak on what Brian Callahan or Mike Borgonzi are thinking or what's going on in the meetings right now, but Brian Callahan mentioned at the end of the year in the locker room cleanout day press conference with us, the idea of, considering their options along the offensive line and being open to a conversation about, if we find a good enough left tackle, we could move J.C. Latham to right, but it's very premature, those discussions. Does that give them a degree of flexibility, though, to have a player like J.C. to where they're not just looking for one? I mean, obviously they're looking for depth at every position as well as just starters, but how much flexibility does J.C. give them up front?
Well, I mean, you've got a very talented player that played every snap, as a rookie. And as any rookies, especially playing that type of position, I mean, he's going to have his ups and downs. But I mean, that was a quality draft pick. He's a quality player. He's a quality person. So I mean, that's what you're trying to do. I mean, you know, when you talk about draft, retain, and develop, you're talking about guys like that. So all those types of decisions, you know, are in the future, but there are also things that you can talk about when you have players that you know are going to be with you for quite a while and have varied skill sets.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, kind enough to spend some time here with us on this Friday. Mac, appreciate you as always, and have a great weekend, buddy.
All right, Buck. See you guys. Thank you. That's
the main man, Mac. Always made possible by the South's most trusted Ford dealer, Two Rivers Ford. The Latham thing allows us to think about this in a couple of different ways, right? Because we've talked about desperate need at right tackle. Well, okay, they've got a player who can play both in this situation, proven that he can play well enough at left to get you through a season. Obviously, we haven't seen him at right at the NFL level, but that's what he was as a college player, so I don't think it would be such a degree of difficulty that switching him back with Bill Callahan, if they go into the offseason or into the season kind of like with that stated goal, okay, last year it was left, last year you were a specialist, now you have to kind of diversify your skill set here. It gives them some flexibility with what they can do at left tackle, with what they can do at right tackle, because they have JC who can do both.
Yeah, and again, JC Latham is now getting to do what all the Titans second-year players of last year got to do, which is have an entire offseason under his belt, right? Peter Skoronski, that was a huge thing for him. We talked about that a lot.
Well, also he wasn't coming off an appendectomy.
Exactly. Skoronski's offseason was really important last year for a great many reasons, but this time last year, J.C. Latham is getting ready for the combine. He's in the middle of the pre-draft process. He doesn't even know what team he's playing for until end of April, beginning of May. So he doesn't know what position he'll be playing in the NFL until even past that point. So this right now is a pivotal time for J.C. Latham. And you wonder what conversations are being had right now with Bill Callahan in terms of the viability of him playing right tackle. If things stack up to where the Titans can bring in a competent left tackle solution, they have that flexibility. Brian Callahan talked about having that flexibility right after the draft when they selected Latham. They stuck him at left tackle for the entirety of the season, but it does feel more feasible for you to find a solution at right tackle and keep him there than to find a solution at left and kick him over to right.
Yeah. And to Jordan Reed's point earlier, what he brought up is, well, you've got a lot of tackles in this class, but not a lot of ideal tackle bodies. And what he's specifically referencing there is the length of some of these guys. Like a lot of times when you're talking about, when people talk about, oh, well, he's a tackle in college, but he'll play guard.
Like Skoronski.
In the NFL. Yeah, you're talking about arm length specifically because you've got these pterodactyls coming off the edge at you. And if they get into your chest and are able to extend, all of a sudden your little brother with big brother holding you by your head while you try and swing at him. Like it's a failed endeavor at that point. It's very easy for you to get those guys, out-athlete those guys in a lot of those situations. And if you've got the length advantage, it's going to benefit you in huge ways. So that's when they talk. That's one of the areas when they talk about, oh, well, tackle at the college level, but guard when it gets to the NFL, because there's guys who have incredible length at the pro level that can really outmatch these guys or put these guys on an island very, very quickly.
If they can find a competent solution at right tackle, the offensive line situation could stabilize quickly. With Latham coming back in year two, Skoronski trying to continue the momentum from especially the back half of his year two, and then the Cushenberry question is a big question at center.
That's the thing about, he said, what Lloyd Cushenberry said is that he expects to be ready by training camp. I appreciate his optimism. I am willing to give him a little bit of grace if he's not ready right out of the gate, because an Achilles is typically a year-long recovery from that injury, and he tore I think he was placed on injured reserve at the end of November, certainly past the halfway point of November. So I'm expecting that there's going to be a bit of a ramp up here. Now, Kirk Cousins came back relatively easily, though we're talking about Kirk at 36 years old. in a different way.
Week 9, November 6th.
Yeah.
That's when he was placed on IR.
Okay, so it was early
November.
Okay, early November. I thought it was later for some reason. So Cushenberry, do you have to, one, find somebody who can play center and guard right away on your roster? Is Cushenberry starting the year on PUP? Obviously, these are questions that we can't answer. But is your starting 5 in training camp going to be the same as your starting 5 once the season starts? That's the thing that we don't know.
We'll see. I'm not going to put it past Cushenberry. I mean, we just saw, Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles pretty late.
Yeah.
Right? In not last season, but the season before.
But they're calling him dead legs in Atlanta.
Oh, sure.
Now, I understand that he's always been a bit more of a, he's a pocket quarterback.
Never been exactly mobile.
Sure.
But my point is that 35-year-old Kirk Cousins was participating in, off-season practices after tearing his Achilles relatively late in the 2023 season. So I'm not going to put it past Cushenberry, but none of these injuries are the exact same, and far be it for us to, act like medical experts. But
no, and we don't know, we can assume the differences in strain from position to position, as one of the commenters on YouTube brings up. Dixie says going to have 300 pounds plus leaning on him.
Yes, that's true.
Every snap, and also he's carrying his own weight, right? Like there's some level of adjustment that quarterbacks don't necessarily have to deal with, talking about the offensive line.
You can see a path forward for the offensive line with Bill Callahan if they can find even just an average solution at right tackle, somebody that can keep his head above water.
I've been waiting for average for 3 years.
I hear you. They've been chasing it since 2020.
Somebody sent me a message on Instagram yesterday, earlier in the week, saying, when can we stop talking about offensive line in the draft? I'm just like, well, not this year. It's just, or in the offseason, because obviously you can address it in a variety of different ways. But again, you have to be prepared if one of these 5 pieces falls off. Like, it's not just starting level competency that we're talking about here. They haven't had depth that's been sufficient. And very few teams have meaningful depth along the offensive line in the NFL. Like, there's probably, 4 or 5 teams at any point that feel like legitimately great about their offensive line situation. There's probably, there's probably half the teams in the league that would say, yeah, we got a viable offensive line situation, and then there's the have-nots who are just trying to survive.
I was thinking about it the other day. 2020, Wilson, 2021, Radens, 2022, Petit Frere.
Just the other day you were thinking about this?
2023.
I've been thinking about this for 5 years.
Skoronski, 2024, Latham. All 5 top 100 draft picks. All 5. And the only ones you feel any modicum of good about are the last 2, in Latham and Skoronski.
I feel genuinely great about J.C. Latham.
Yeah.
I will say,
and I feel good about Skoronski, but you can talk about the viability, the value of him as the 11th overall pick.
It's always something I'm going to hold against him, and I know that's not his fault, but that's just what it is.
But I feel good about him being this team's left guard.
Sure.
For the coming years. So
I am not bothered by it. Like, I'm not active. We're not talking about left guard solutions. They clearly and obviously need an upgrade at right guard. Again, if I was the Titans, maybe I would consider Dylan Radens on a depth deal. I don't know if he's going to get legitimate starting options out there on the open market. He could. He played well enough in spurts that a team may take a chance on him. I personally would not be interested in seeing Dylan Radens as a starter for the Titans, again, as an unrestricted free agent heading into this offseason. What do I got to give away?
Give us your Friday Fire, and you got 2 tickets to see the Outlaw Music Festival featuring performance from Willie Nelson and family, Bob Dylan, Nathaniel Rateliff, and the Night Sweats at First Bank Amphitheater on June 25th.
Is it Rateliff or Ratliff? Rateliff. Either way.
Boom! He's good. He puts on a good show.
Great band. All right. 3 things right in 8 months. This man is it's happened 2 days in a row. Is that a trend?
Are we improving?
I doubt
it. Yeah, next week's going to be a train wreck.
Call us. Give us your Friday Fire, your moment of positivity, your feel-good this week, 615-737-1045. We'll send you to see Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, and Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. I don't think it's that hard to make me be positive, but what I'm positive of is that you want the opportunity to win these Outlaw Music Festival tickets featuring Willie Nelson. You say his family as well?
Says Willie Nelson and family on my little paper here.
Oh, is Lucas going to be there?
That's what I'm saying. Not
me, but
talking
Lucas Nelson with
It would
the K.
be very imaginable to picture Lucas with his bloated ego talking about himself in the third person.
If Lucas Nelson is going to be there, that might be the thing that pushes me over to say, no, just give me these tickets.
This is actually going to be a campaign fundraiser for Lucas's Titans radio campaign.
So Lucas Nelson, also excellent. Willie Nelson, a timeless classic. You've got Bob Dylan, who I'm curious to what that would look like live as of late, but also Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats and several other artists. 615-737-1045. Tell us your Friday Fire. Mine's AJ Brown. So I don't know if you saw this story about the 10-year-old Andre Howard III, who was in a transport plane crash. He was able to protect his sister from debris after a medical transport plane crashed in Philadelphia late last month. Both were hospitalized. The family was able to come out okay for the most part, other than, the obvious scare. And A.J. Brown, the family is from the Philadelphia area. Obviously, all 6 people on board were killed. Andre Howard said they were in the car when the debris started hitting the vehicle. And so he was able to jump into the backseat, cover his sister up, and keep her from getting hit by the debris. So A.J. Brown visited them in the hospital, brought them the Lombardi Trophy. It was a delightful moment. Well done by A.J.
Yeah, that is amazing. Amazing stuff. My Friday Fire is Team USA Hockey, who kicked off its Four Nations Face-Off campaign last night. If you have kind of checked out a little bit of the hockey season, which I wouldn't necessarily blame you for with how rough things have been, for the Nashville Predators, the Four Nations Face-Off has replaced NHL All-Star Weekend. The Preds are off until next Saturday, and instead of an All-Star game, they are putting together Sweden, USA, Finland, and Canada playing this round-robin tournament. It'll culminate in a championship game February 20th, and honestly, it's been electric so far. Some of the best players in the NHL. It's not that the league picks the All-Stars and basically formulates the teams. The governing bodies of the teams, the countries, get to pick their rosters. And Team USA picked apart Finland with a third period explosion last night, 6-1. UC Saros in net for Finland. That did not go great for him in that third period. But Brady and Matthew Tkachuk combining for 4 goals, 1 assist, 13 shots, and 10 hits. A masterclass by the Tkachuk brothers. And USA takes on Canada on Saturday, which should be an electric environment. That game Saturday at 7 p.m. on ABC. Another really cool element of this, the late Johnny Gaudreau, the Blue Jackets star, who tragically, he and his brother passed away getting hit by a drunk driver when they were out for a bike ride a few months ago, last year. Johnny Gaudreau almost certainly would have been on this roster. And they brought in his father, Guy, as a guest assistant coach who was taking team photos, who was present at practice, had a team dinner with the squad just the other night before this game against Finland. The whole thing has been a great setup, and I just love the way they honored the Gaudreau family in the process. So Team USA Hockey is my Friday Fire.
Lovely. Jackson?
I am going with this Nike ad that aired after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I just think the troll level is elite. So for those who don't know, Patrick Mahomes, when he speaks, sounds like Kermit the Frog. After you beat Patrick Mahomes, you do a commercial where Kermit the Frog is singing. I love it. Love the pettiness. 10 out of 10.
They were burning Kermit the Frog, stuffed Kermit the Frog dolls in Philadelphia in celebration of the Super Bowl.
We did not believe Jackson when he told us Nike had an ad running with Kermit voicing it, and it is true. They did.
I was doubted.
Perpetually, for good cause, like coming back from this last segment 4 seconds late. 615-737-1045 is the number. Stop giving me that little pig hoof of a middle finger. Put it away. for the opportunity to win some Outlaw Music Festival tickets. What is your Friday Fire? Let's start with Jordan.
Hey guys. My Friday Fire goes to Slick Rick. He is the mailroom employee of the Buffalo Bills. Last Thursday, during the NFL Honors, when quarterback Josh Allen was doing his MVP acceptance speech, he gave him a shout-out. And so a local news station up in Buffalo wanted to know more about Slick Rick, and he was so overcome with emotion. And come to find out that he takes the bus to and from One Bills Drive. So a local car dealership gifted him with a Chevy Traverse so he can stop taking the bus. That is my Friday Fire. Thanks, guys.
Oh, that's lovely.
Wow, that is such a cool story. That is the leader for sure. That reminded me of Derrick Henry and his last, basically, press conference post-game after the Jags game, shouting out everybody in the building, from cafeteria workers to, janitors, everybody you can imagine. That was cool by Josh Allen, and that is a great move by the Bills.
Lane is next.
Hey, there we go. Sorry if I got hung up on y'all. Mine's more in my own life, but basically I just kind of decided to put the past behind me, so to speak, or quite literally put my behind in the past. And through that, there's just a lot of goodness coming out of, like, my relationships. And every conversation, whether it be a stranger or a close family member or my wife, it's like more creative thoughts are, like, coming into my head of just basically how to shower everybody with more love. And through that, you kind of find out who your enemies are, too. So I know that's not very specific, and I can give examples. I got a guy and his wife to bring in flowers to my wife at her work today and just kind of snuck them in there. And I had them sneak them in there rather than bring them to her directly. And I may not have thought of that if I wasn't kind of on the path I'm on. So that's what I got.
Well, that's lovely.
That's so cool. Great
Well done
stuff,
by
Lane.
Lane.
Would love to hear an example about the enemies, too, but we may not have time.
I assumed he was keeping a list. The problem with us is that we immediately pivoted to the list of enemies while Lane is in this period of self-reflection and discovery at this point in time, en route to becoming a new and improved, more thoughtful human being, it sounds like, thinking of others as opposed to thinking of himself, whereas we are thinking about ourselves.
Who is it against?
And who would we put on our list of enemies?
Who are you doing it versus? No, that's really cool, Lane.
Well done. Jessica, for the opportunity to win the tickets.
Yes. The first thing is my kid is asleep today, so she's not hanging up.
Okay. Excellent.
The second thing is the foundation that I called for last week was able to raise $16,500 after the basketball game for local scholarships for Coffee County athletes.
That's awesome. That's a good chunk of change.
Cool.
Well done. Well done, Jessica. What's the place where people can go to learn more about the cause?
You can go to thunderradio.com or on Facebook, and is the Dream for Weed Foundation out of Coffee County.
Awesome. Well done by Jessica. Those are 3 quality submissions. All right, whose heart you going to break?
Oh, man. Those are 3 excellent submissions.
Go ahead. Tell Lane his moment of self-discovery.
Lane turning his life around.
That's right.
And just showering everyone in his life with love.
The purpose of this segment. Go ahead and tell him it's not good enough.
Jordan, with the incredible story in Buffalo of Slick Rick, the person from the Bills mailroom that was given a truck after it was discovered he has to ride the bus to work.
Not the American rapper and record producer who wears an eye patch.
Right. And Jess with money for athletes in Coffee County, student athletes, young student athletes.
Yes, we know. We heard them. Go
I'm
ahead and break somebody's
stalling.
heart.
I don't know. Jackson.
Not touching this one.
Go ahead, Lucas.
Let's play a game.
We're already playing
it's
a game.
55.
I'm thinking
We
of
already played the game.
a number 1 through 3 in my head. What am I thinking of?
2.5.
Let's give it to Jessica. Impacting lives, young student athletes.
So tell Lane.
I was so
and-
close
Wait a minute. Wait.
that they're not good enough.
getting up and walking out of the studio so he'd have to figure this out himself.
Did she win last week, though?
No, her kid hung up on her while she was
that's
waiting
right.
in line
That's
to
right.
win.
She said, yes. Then I think, Jess, because we would have given it to her last week. We didn't get the chance. Then Jessica. But great
Then say
submissions.
it. Say Lane and Jordan, you're not good enough.
Yeah, say it.
I think you just did.
Congratulations.
I don't believe that.
Congratulations to Jessica.
I'm just interpreting what you're saying.
Always call us and give us your moment of positivity each and every Friday at 11:45 for the opportunity to win great prizes. So, the final hour, let's grade the Titans rookie class. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL could be headed back to Vegas for the Super Bowl in 2029. According to a report this morning by Pro Football Talk, the league is leaning towards a return to Sin City, which would be only 5 years after the Super Bowl was played there for the first time in 2024. If the new Nissan Stadium opens in Nashville in 2027, then 2029 would be a year the Titans and Nashville would be eligible to host the Super Bowl. Big weekend of basketball in the SEC. Tennessee and Vanderbilt meeting for the second time this season. The Commodores travel to Knoxville Saturday. The Vols looking to avenge a 76-75 loss at Memorial Gym January 18th. Tip-off is at noon. Vol Network coverage starts at 11:30 on The Zone. And Alabama hosts Auburn. 1 versus 2. The top-ranked Auburn Tigers visit number 2 Alabama, the first 1 versus 2 matchup in SEC men's basketball history. That's a 3 p.m. tip on ESPN. College baseball action kicks off this weekend. Tennessee starts its national title defense with the series against Hofstra. First pitch in Knoxville this afternoon at 3:30. And the Vandy boys are in the MLB Desert Invitational, starting with the matchup against Grand Canyon tonight at 7. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
As we get ready for another free agency frenzy and NFL draft cycle where the Titans are picking number 1 overall, it's important to kind of look at the foundation of things around here and, just check our bearings. Where are things at? What can continue to be built upon based on what already exists here and how much further this team has to go to get back to meaningfully competitive? As we've talked about several times over, the 2024 rookie class is something that we're going to take a look at now. Welcome in. Happy Friday. Happy Valentine's Day to all you lovers out there. If you are not celebrating Valentine's Day with a loved one, I hope you're celebrating Valentine's Day in some form or fashion with friends or family, however it is. Jackson, what are you going to do?
No plans.
Okay.
That was mean.
Yeah, you suck.
Be on time in segments. Then I won't be so mean to you.
I know what Jackson's doing Sunday night. SNL 50th, baby.
Oh, yes.
3-hour special. I'm pumped. Maybe that could have been my Friday Fire.
3 hours?
Yes.
And
3
it's
hours.
going to be the best television on TV all year.
Is it actually live?
It'll definitely be the best television on Sunday night. Yes, it is live on Sunday. They did this for the 40th, and it was just a smash hit where they bring back all these SNL alums, a legend across the board, and tons of great hosts from over the years, and obviously the current cast. I've been on a big SNL kick lately with all the content coming out with the 50th anniversary. I know Jackson loves him some SNL, so I can't wait for that on Sunday.
Lucas, should we bump back with some Lonely Island?
Can you play Lonely Island on FCC Safe Radio?
There might be a few songs.
My, my only sampling of the Lonely Island albums
catalog.
They
have a ton of songs.
Is Richard in a Box?
No, you've heard I'm on a boat. I mean, you've heard a bunch of Lonely Island songs.
No, I'm on a boat like the Step Brothers song.
No, the T-Pain with T-Pain in there.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, you've definitely heard that.
Okay.
I'm on a boat like the Step Brothers song. I do love the Step Brothers one.
Yeah, sing a couple lines from that, Buck.
I will not, because we cannot. What we can talk about is this 2024 Titans rookie class. How do you think they fared? They played a ton of snaps. J.C. Latham started all 17 games. Jarvis Brownlee played well over 600 defensive snaps by the time the thing was said and done as a rookie 5th-round corner. You had some contributions, if you would like to qualify them as contributions, from people like Jaquan Jackson and Cedric Gray. Obviously, that did not overwhelmingly work in their favor. One had availability issues, the other had fumbling issues, and ended up being a healthy scratch for a good portion of the end of the year. You've got Tavondre Sweat, who came in, I don't know, do I want to call him embattled when he was drafted or in the draft process? He was certainly doubted.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I mean, the entire Tavondre Sweat discussion was about anything outside of football. It was about the DUI. It was about his fitness. Whether or not he'd be in shape, whether or not he'd be available come training camp.
Well, it wasn't about anything but football. It was about, is he a good enough football player to put up with the noise?
So, he checked all those boxes. But in terms of what he did on the field, are we going by the same parameters as when we graded the Titans free agency class from last year? Fell short of, met, or exceeded expectations?
That's the way that we do this game.
S, M, or E. So in the first round, did J.C. Latham fall short of, meet, or exceed expectations in his rookie year?
Exceeded. He played every game. He played it at a reasonably high level. I know that there was some variance from performance to performance. He's a rookie. Rookie offensive linemen are usually dreadful. And this one was not. He was completely functional. I know, again, there are some moments he got beat. There are some quality pass rushers with a great deal of experience in the league that he faced this year. Thought he held his own, thought he acquitted himself. I feel great about J.C. Latham's future, whether it's at left tackle or whether they consider it viable to move him over to right. If they find a viable left tackle solution, I am all in on J.C. Latham exceeding expectations.
No doubt. No doubt. Surprising, we put it to the poll yesterday when, how did we phrase it? In terms of the Titans rookie class, we asked who is the best Titans rookie of 2024, and Sweat won the vote by a large margin, and then it went Brownlee and then Latham.
That's incorrect.
I know. I agree. J.C. Latham, the expectations of a day one starter at left tackle.
I think that's some Titans fans caping up for their guy. Because, we had Jordan Reed on in the first hour, and that was one of the questions that I asked him. Fans will throw it back in your face for throw it back in whomever's face was having the analysis of T'Vondre Sweat. I don't know. A lot of red flags off a lot of people's draft board. Is it worth is the player worth the cost of the pick, given that teams like the Rams were calling Tennessee about that specific pick, ended up doing a deal with Carolina very much after the fact for Braden Fisk. And, is it worth the opportunity that you had to regain draft capital in a year where you were already working with one hand behind your back because you didn't have a third-round pick after the Will Levis draft? Fans will very quickly be like, oh, it was much ado about nothing. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you guys will dramatize everything. The guy got a DUI in a couple of weeks leading up to the NFL draft.
Okay, so did T'Vondre Sweat fall short of, meet, or exceed expectations in his rookie year?
Exceed because there were people doubting him. I thought that he was a fine player. I don't think that there was a level of impact that would make me say, wow, that's going to be one of the best interior defensive linemen in football for years to come. I didn't get that out of Sweat in year one, but what I did get is an impressive amount of durability. He played a ton of snaps as a rookie. There's a lot of, I think the Titans, I'll have to go back and look at this specifically, but I think the Titans had the most rookie snaps out of starters this year for the amount of rookies that had to play either due to injury or just out of necessity because this team needs starters. So I would, I had questions about Sweat, and he very quickly answered those.
I agree. I'd encourage anyone to go check out Brian Baldinger's segment with 3HL from Super Bowl week. It's on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube page. Subscribe while you're there because he's in love with T'Vondre Sweat. Loves the guy. Baldy's breakdowns. He's always breaking down defensive linemen, and he went in depth about what he likes with Sweat. He needs to take a bit of a leap year two. I think people want to see him impact games more in terms of just being a game wrecker.
He's
next
a
to Jeffrey Simmons
athlete. Well, he's not. He's a run stuffer supreme. What you need to see is the athletic gifts that he possesses translate at some point into legitimate pass rush.
I think you'd like to see the Titans be able to collapse the pocket defensively a little more often than they did last year, when that was the primary focus going in. They wanted to. Their primary method of access to the opposing quarterback, they wanted to be from the interior of the defensive line, correct?
Yeah.
So they'll have to take a step. But I agree, he exceeded expectations. Cedric Gray.
Oh, fell short.
Yeah, barely played.
Barely played. When he got out there on special teams, obviously the most famous bad special teams play that he had was arm tackling Damian Pierce and letting him run for 80 yards on the opening kickoff return of the Texans game. They ended up winning that game, but not because the special teams did a great deal to help him. Now, also, when they put him out on defense, what was that, the Colts game, the second Colts game at Indianapolis?
They were super thin at linebacker.
Around Christmas, but it ended up being the two rookies playing a great deal of snaps, and they just got lost. It was a tough spot, but, Jeff Simmons was very, I'd say, stern about it. He wasn't, ripping them. in the locker room afterwards, but basically like, hey, when your opportunity comes, you got to be ready. I don't care where you were drafted or who you are, what your pedigree is. You got to be ready. And the linebackers in that game got taken for a ride. So I would say for the talk about him after he was drafted, like, oh, could this be a potential running mate for Kenneth Murray? To, oh, this guy would be lucky to contribute anything at all in his first season. It was a pretty steep drop-off relative to expectation.
I mean, the green dot conversation. Was he not one of the primary? Who are we talking about with the green dot thing? Him and Kenneth Murray?
Well, they were talking about, Kenneth Murray can't do it. Make it him.
Right. So I agree. Jarvis Brownlee.
Exceeded.
Shattered, right? I mean, when somebody plays that much.
Shattered would indicate that he was like a really good corner. He was...
No, I don't think it has to indicate that he was a really good corner. He's a fourth-round pick at corner. Fifth-round pick at corner on a team that...
He thinks he should have been a fourth. But
on a team that went out and spent on Chido Awuzie and on L'Jarius Sneed and also gave up draft capital for L'Jarius Sneed. We weren't expecting him to play that much. Obviously, he did because of availability, and he played very well in spurts. I think that is grounds for shattering expectations for a fifth-rounder at corner.
I would like to keep the bar a little higher for that word. I thought he exceeded expectations. I do not think that he shattered my expectations of Jarvis Brownlee, because they were not a good defense. Like they're yes, it was admirable the job that they were asked to do. Yes, because of how many snaps he played, he became one of the people that we were consistently going to week after week after week to talk on behalf of a 3-14 football team. Like not a 10-year vet, because there's not that many of them running around in the Titans locker room, not, a defensive captain or something like that, though we did go talk to Jeff after every game, but like it's Jeff and Brownlee talking on behalf of the defense half the time. And so that's no small thing either. I thought he handled himself as well as he could. I know he had the one slip up verbally in Washington that people will, talk about or probably forget about after enough time passes, but definitely exceeded it. I want to give him proper credit. I just don't want to, I don't want to take it to an extreme just yet.
The two seventh-rounders, James Williams and Jalen Harrell.
James Williams met expectations. I think he's got a lot of promise as a key special teams player for a long time, and they seem to think that he has some juice on defense. I know that they got thin at linebacker towards the end of the year. He's not ideal. He's still learning the position. He's a converted safety, but Otis Reese looked a lot better after he spent more time playing linebacker from the safety position coming out of Ole Miss. I feel okay. I feel like James Williams met my expectation. Jalen Harrell, I don't think he was the last pick of their draft class.
Yep.
He's a seventh-round pass rusher. I don't know. I mean,
he's a seventh-round pick that played in 13 games.
Yeah, but who else was going to get after the quarterback here?
Sure, they were incredibly thin, but he played a lot of special teams. I feel like when you're talking about a seventh-round pick, sometimes even making the 53
roster, for sure.
is meeting expectations.
Okay, I'm with you.
But he had a lot of buzz in training camp, right? And you look to him as, please, can we get something out of this seventh-round rookie?
A lot of people had buzz coming out of training camp that we should have just shut up about, to be honest. But I get your point. Okay, you know what? For Harrell, I'll say Matt. Coming up next, we will talk about who Jeff Simmons wants to see the Titans draft, and we will also talk about our draft crushes. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. All right, you want to do some corny Valentine's Day subject matter? Let's do some draft crushes on Valentine's Day. That all right with everybody? We got Jeff Simmons expressing who he's interested in seeing the Titans draft with the number 1 overall pick, which may or may not align with some of your feelings. We have Jordan Reed of ESPN outlining a pretty fair scenario, I think, for us to discuss further in this segment, and providing 2 scenarios that the Titans could take as a result of is it a conflict that Mike Borgonzi is facing? The decision. We'll call it a decision. It's not a conflict. Decision can come with conflict, but it doesn't have to necessarily. Just depends on what route he wants to take and how he wants to define his first draft as the first-time general manager of the Tennessee Titans. So, where is this Jeff Simmons audio from? Bleacher Report? Whose podcast is he on?
I don't know whose podcast he's on, but it's on Bleacher Report.
All right, very good.
It looks like, I don't want to speculate. Is that Deebo Samuel he's talking to?
It might be.
It looks like does Deebo Samuel have a podcast that?
Yes. Deebo Samuel does have a podcast on Bleacher Report.
He's
he's wearing an Eagles jersey.
He is wearing an Eagles jersey. So, oh, wait. No, it is Deebo because he was walking around with an A.J. Brown jersey in New Orleans, and this was a thing because he's had beef with the Eagles before. He's tweeted things about the Eagles, and their fans have come after him, but he's very good friends with A.J. Brown. Remember when they did that Instagram live thing together when
sure do.
AJ was trying to get paid by the Titans, Debo's trying to get paid by the Niners.
Covered that the whole way through, bud. I was there.
So, yes, this is Jeffrey Simmons speaking with Deebo Samuel on a Bleacher Report podcast in New Orleans.
One draft pick. What you think y'all need?
I'm going to start on the defense side. I think we need another edge guy. That guy from Penn State, Abdul Carter.
He's a dog.
He's a dog.
He's a dog.
He's a dog. So, I for sure think we need an edge.
You're a defensive guy? You say you need a DM?
I need an outside linebacker.
So, Jeff says, yeah, I'd like some help. I'd like a little more juice. I'd like the dog from Penn State. I'd like Abdul Carter with the number 1 overall pick. I think that he is, because I know definitively what he can do, Lucas, and maybe maybe I'm not being open-minded enough because of the Travis Hunter solution. That could, provide help on defense, could provide help on offense. But because I know definitively that Abdul Carter can do something that the Titans can't do right now, I think that he's the best player in this draft class to me.
Abdul Carter?
Yes.
I agree.
I also have watched several playoff games this year where the Houston Texans, the Buffalo Bills, and the Philadelphia Eagles, all with an above-average pass rush group, were able to maybe not completely stop the best quarterback in football because the Bills and the Texans didn't do it. But Philadelphia was overwhelming with their defensive front. Patrick Mahomes was incapable of moving the ball at all in the first half, basically until halfway through the third quarter when the Eagles were like, yeah, okay, we'll bleed out the clock. I'm not saying that it should stop you from drafting a quarterback if you believe that quarterback. Like I said, if Mike Borgonzi's top quarterback on his draft board, or not top quarterback, top player on his draft board is Cam Ward, then take the quarterback, and I will have zero problems.
That's an asterisk that comes with every discussion we have from now until the NFL draft in late April.
Correct. So, if that's not the case, you take the player who's number 1 on your board. It's not my board. It's Mike Borgonzi's board. But if it was my board, I would want Abdul Carter. I am with Jeff Simmons.
Yeah. The more we talk to people that are actually smart, unlike us, the Jordan Reeds and the Coach Max of the football world, the more skeptical I become of the possibility of Travis Hunter playing primarily wide receiver and being able to help you on defense. Can see a world where he primarily plays corner and can help you on offense. And he is obviously a special player. Is he a special cornerback? Is he a special wide receiver? And when I say special, I'm thinking Jamar Chase, right? Thinking top 5 pick worthy. Justin Jefferson. Is he that? I don't know if he is. I think Abdul Carter can be a special pass rusher. There's a lot of people that think Abdul Carter can have a Micah Parsons-like impact, not just because he comes from the same school and wears the same number, but can immediately be a game wrecker. And the Titans have bodies in the cornerback room. Like, I get more drawn to Abdul Carter than I do Travis Hunter, both because of the need, and it's a big one for the Titans right now, and because of the potential of him being truly a special, special player. And the idea of being able to get him with the number 3 overall pick, moving back from number 1 overall and still potentially getting the best player in the draft, oh, that's so enticing to me. So I agree with Jeff.
Well, the opposite. So if we're to present both sides of the argument, and the chat is very quick to point this out, and they're right to do so, there have been plenty of teams over the years who have had excellent defenses, who have prioritized, who have gone this route, right? Who have said, okay, there's better players at their respective positions than the quarterbacks that are available. Let me take the pass rusher here. Myles Garrett is the number 1 overall pick. The Cleveland Browns have won I'm not going to say that they've won very little with Myles Garrett on the roster because they did make the postseason. They did win a playoff game, but that's not enough. Myles Garrett is currently on his way out of Cleveland because they couldn't figure out the quarterback part of the equation. I mean, they tried. They had a couple cracks at it. Baker had a moment. It wasn't good enough. Now I'm sure they would beg Baker Mayfield to come back if presented the opportunity because the Deshaun Watson thing has been such a nightmare. Cleveland's downfall has been a very, very unique situation, though. What's less unique, because of the Watson thing, there's never been anything in NFL history like the Watson thing. J.J. Watt, though, is another example of this, where J.J. Watt was the best football player on his team, even when they had decent quarterback play, decent to above average quarterback play, and the Texans never made it to an AFC championship game. It's a tough thing. There are no perfect solutions here because you either, A, draft a quarterback because you're pressing. That doesn't feel like the situation here. B, take a quarterback and play them before they're ready. C, draft a quarterback with the intention to sit him behind a veteran, which leads to a degree of angst because fans are going to want to see the quarterback drafted in the first round. Ownership probably at some point is going to want to see the quarterback drafted in the first round. And the proposition that Jordan Reed brought up with us earlier, does Mike Borgonzi right out of the gate want to tie himself to one of these quarterbacks? We don't know the answer to that question, but it is a fair question to ask about this specific situation. It's tough. This is not an idea. None of these situations are ideal. It's a problem-solving business. You got to figure out the best possible solution, and we'll see what they're able to make out of it. It's not the worst. It's not 2022. This is not an objectively bad quarterback class. These two players can play at the next level. There's reason to believe that Jackson Dart, even Tyler Shuck,
like an oyster,
except not spelled that way. Even Tyler Shuck out of Louisville has some promise here should he land in the right spot. Some of these quarterbacks. Milroe, I have no idea what Jalen Milroe is going to become. I know it very much matters where he lands. I have to think less about it with Abdul Carter, though, because it takes less to have a good pass rusher than it does a great quarterback. I get why there is a percentage of fans, and it may be a majority, that are just sick and tired of waiting. Like, no, you have the number 1 overall pick. Keep it simple, stupid. Take the quarterback. Take the best quarterback. I'm not saying it's easy. My preference would be the pass rusher.
Now, when we talk draft crush, what is easy is naming a guy who might be the best player in the draft, and that's Abdul Carter. Do you have somebody that won't go number 1 overall that would qualify more as a draft crush?
Yeah,
because everybody's got a crush on Abdul Carter.
It's reasonable. Well, he does one of the most important things in football and brings a lot to the table. My draft crush is North Carolina running back Omarion Hampton. Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in the class. It's a much better running back class than it was a year ago, where you saw, I think, a confluence of, okay, running back class not as deep in the draft will have a good class of veteran free agent running backs to where Derrick Henry and Tony Pollard and Saquon Barkley are all getting sizable deals. Alvin Kamara even got an extension. He's a different kind of player. But Omarion Hampton is one of the most fun players. Again, I'm not studying draft tape in the level of detail that Jordan Reed or Greg Cosell are, but just kind of the top players at every position that I need to know, even if it's not a position group that we're necessarily talking about for the Titans. If you get into the second round and he's the best player available, I don't know if I'm not taking that guy. He's so much fun to watch.
I don't know, man.
I know. I get it. I was not on board with Tajay Spears in the third, even though we'll see what happens with the concussion situation. It's an availability problem for Tajay, and obviously Tony Pollard is the better player. But it's just there's not enough good players on this roster to just pass over good players.
Hampton was a Doak Walker finalist. He edged out Dylan Sampson, who many think were snubbed. Tennessee fans certainly believe he was snubbed after being named SEC Offensive Player of the Year. But just insanely productive at North Carolina last season.
12 games, 281 carries, 1,660 yards, 5.9 yards per attempt, and 15 touchdowns. He also caught 38 passes on 43 targets. He added 373 receiving yards to North Carolina's offense last year.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty. 300 and how many?
Yards, passing or receiving yards? 373.
So he was over 2,000 yards from scrimmage.
Yes.
Last year.
Your math is safe.
Oh, thank God.
You didn't give an exact number. That's the only reason your math is safe.
When's the last time the Titans spent a top 100 pick on a wide receiver?
AJ.
Oh, come on. Come on. Who'd they replace AJ with?
Traylon.
Traylon Burks.
No, I really didn't do that on purpose. Lucas, I don't think about him at all. I really don't.
I don't know the next time we're going to be discussing Traylon Burks. That injury came fairly late in the season, right?
An ACL repair. Yeah. So he didn't outright tear it. It was a non-contact ACL injury in a practice. They felt not good enough about it that they were just, content to let it kind of heal. They had to repair it. So it shut him down for the year. He went on injured reserve in December.
So I'm ready to see the Titans get back to spending high draft capital on a wide receiver.
Come on, like I was doing a thing. That's how bad it is, though. I don't think about him at all.
My draft crush is Tez Johnson, the receiver out of Oregon. Last 2 years.
Not the first round pick, though.
Do you think he's worked his way up into the first round?
Actually, no, that's fair.
I don't know.
That's fair because of the size thing is going to be a legit talking point. I understand that Tank Dell and Tutu Atwell, honestly, has turned into a quality player for the Rams. He was certainly undersized coming out of Louisville a couple of years ago. So, I don't know. It's not like the greatest wide receiver class. I could see him fringe.
Yeah, and we have 2 months here, so there's a lot that can happen between now and then. And he helped himself a ton at the Senior Bowl, but man.
Somebody said Cam Batson had more memorable moments in a Titans uniform than Traylon Burks. Yeah, the wild
he had a signature
Mickey
play.
Ryan.
Signature play. Yeah. Coach Mack who has really quelled any concerns I might have about Tez Johnson's size. Talking to him after watching him at the Senior Bowl, he did bring up the Tank Dell comparison. Size has not been an issue for Tank Dell in the NFL. I know he ended his season with a gruesome leg injury, some friendly fire there, held onto the ball, still caught the touchdown against the Chiefs in that late season game. But you talk about a human joystick. The change of direction on this guy is absurd. Yep. Over 2,000 receiving yards in his last 2 seasons combined at Oregon. A bit of an offensive drop-off or a receiving yards drop-off from his last year to 2024, or from his second to last year to 2024. But stepping up in one of the biggest moments of the season with over 180 yards in the Big Ten championship, 20 touchdowns in the last 2 years. Again, Evan Stewart is the receiver that came to my mind when I thought about the Oregon Ducks going into 2024. Former 5-star A&M transfer, highly, highly coveted receiver in the portal, but Tez Johnson stole the show to where Evan Stewart is coming back to A&M in 2025 to try to improve his draft stock. I love Tez Johnson, and you're right. He might not be available for the Titans. He could be there early in the second round. He could work his way up into the late first round. We don't know what the run on wide receivers will look like. I don't think there's that much of a consensus at the top of the receiver draft between T-Mac and Luther Burden, who seem to be 1A, 1B, however you want to divvy that up. I don't think there's an overwhelming consensus on wide receiver 1. There could be room there for mobility up the draft boards for Johnson, but I was just enthralled by what he was doing down at the Senior Bowl and what he's done at Oregon in the last couple of years since being a transfer from Troy, Alabama native.
Jackson, do you have one? I didn't prepare you for this bit.
My draft crush?
Mm-hmm.
Pat Bryant out of Illinois.
Okay. What position?
I just think he's a big receiver, can make really nice plays on the ball, had a nice week at Senior Bowl, and I think in day 2, I think he'd be a really nice compliment to Calvin Ridley. I just think he would be a really good fit on this team. But also, my last wide receiver draft crush was Traylon Burks, so I don't know anything.
How many
But
touchdowns?
that's when you thought that Traylon Burks would be paired with A.J. Brown. Like, that was a
buddy,
scenario
when I was
that
in
was very
college,
much talked about.
I could not stop talking about Traylon Burks and A.J. Brown as the next dominant wide receiver duo in the NFL.
How many touchdowns did you score with Bryant on EA College Football?
A healthy amount. I didn't play with Illinois that much, but when I got him in a random a couple times, like playing a buddy, and he was incredible.
He's a good player.
So we're doing this off NCAA ratings.
That's how I base my life.
Excellent. Jordan Reed was on the radio show earlier, and we posed to him a question specific to the Tennessee Titans, what he would do at the top of the draft. With that, Jordan, obviously you'll have so many different players that you're going through in the course of the pre-draft process. Combine's still ahead, which will add additional insight and information into your analysis. But is there a player that you haven't gotten to talk about yet that you really enjoy, or a draft crush in particular that's caught your eye as you continue to study these guys' tape?
Oh man, give me a position.
Let's go running back. It's an interesting running back class.
Yeah, Devin Neal out of Kansas. I'm a big fan of Devin Neal. I've been able to see him play in person. I saw him play against Illinois, which is one of his better games of the year. Just his combination of his skill set of being able to catch out of the backfield, run between the tackles. He has awesome contact balance, really good vision. I have an early 3rd round grade on him. I think he's going to end up going in that range. And I know the Titans don't have a 3rd round pick right now. They have 2 4s. But if he's there for them, why not take him? And I know they're loaded at running back, but if they want to add another to the stable, Devin Neal would be a fantastic choice. I think he's going to be an awesome pro.
I get what he's saying about loaded at running back. Like they've got players in the room right now, but I don't know. I'd be curious to see what the new administration thinks of Tajay Spears.
Neal was incredible in that game against Colorado. Must-win game for Colorado for their Big 12 championship hopes, their college football playoff hopes. He ripped off 203 touchdowns. So, big game player. 4 total touchdowns with 1 receiving.
615-737-1045. We've got some calls to take on the draft and draft crushes on this Valentine's Day. We can do that and wrap up the show. All right. Let's wrap this bad boy up for the weekend. Last call for phone calls if you got them. 615-737-1045. First weekend without football.
Well, we had Pro Bowl weekend.
No.
I think for a lot, I was talking to someone the other day that isn't big into the NFL. It was Tony Husband, former Nashville SC TV announcer, now Apple TV MLS.
Way to betray a confidence.
Tony's from England, and we were talking, and he was like, he's followed the NFL since he lived in England, but he said after conference championship weekend is when season's basically over.
It
to
drops
me.
off.
Yeah,
for sure.
like Super Bowl is a spectacle, and you have the watch party, but after conference championship weekend, the season does kind of feel over, and I get that.
Well, this time though, it's just basketball. Just basketball and hockey out there. Pitchers and catchers reporting pretty soon.
Nashville SC season opener next Saturday against New England Revolution. Another season on 104.5 The Zone. Very excited.
Okay. You're going to have B.J. Callahan on Monday, huh?
That's right. Nashville manager B.J. Callahan starting his first full season. He'll join us at 10:20 on Monday.
Okay. To the phones, Tyler is up next.
Hey, Buck, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, it makes me happy.
Wanted to kind of give my first three picks, and two of them include my biggest draft crushes. So, number one overall should just go Abdul Carter. Completely agree with you. Don't need a quarterback right now. We're not a quarterback away in any time in the future. Number two overall, or the second round pick, I'd love to see Alec Manor from Stanford, 6'2". Think he can fly, and was just on a horrible Stanford team and still putting up numbers. And then number three is Cam Scatabo, which I do love Tajay Spears too, but I think Scatabo, and I know a lot of people are going to say his speed isn't going to translate to the NFL, but if you're running over people, speed doesn't really matter. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and thank you so much.
Thanks for the call. Scatabo.
He has preseason star written all over him. I feel like that dude's going to run for 270 yards in a preseason game.
Hey, you know what? Who was a preseason star? And I remember watching this play out in real time because it was a preseason game against the Titans. Isaiah Likely was one of the best players I've ever seen in preseason. And I was like, who the hell is this tight end? Where was he at? He's not a Robert Walsh ECU Pirate, is he?
If he was, Robert would already have the jersey. No, he went to Coastal Carolina.
Okay. But I just remember watching this. Who the hell is this number 80 running around out there? They also had a giant wide receiver that I think was wearing 85 that just kept catching touchdowns on their necks. I can't remember who that guy was. He didn't, I don't think, make it to the regular season roster. But, I mean, it's possible. Listen, what he did in that college football playoff game against Texas is crazy. It's superhuman stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, catching the ball, running the ball, and throwing the football. Jay, I'm afraid to say this name. I don't know if it's anything dirty, but it just looks kind of odd.
Where?
I'm just going to say Jay in the FNM Bank chat, just the letter J.
Okay.
Says, no sports during Valentine's weekend. Team USA hockey against Canada. I mean, it's in Montreal. Canada with a thrilling win over Sweden the other day.
There's college basketball this weekend.
Stars, there's great college hoops on Saturday.
About?
Yeah, there's plenty to go around.
As far as Tennessee and Vanderbilt goes tomorrow, noon the tip here on 104.5 The Zone. You can catch the Vol Network coverage. Vandy at Tennessee. Tennessee coming off a sweep by Kentucky, looking to avoid a sweep against Vanderbilt. To Lucas's point in the first segment of the show, I think you brought it up, 2015 is the last time that Vanderbilt swept in the regular season Tennessee.
15-16 season.
Kevin Stallings was the coach. Rick Barnes' first year. A decade since then. Crazy to think about. Vanderbilt at 17-7, going to Tennessee, coming off a couple of less than ideal performances. Vandy pretty shaky right now, needing desperately to pick up wins ahead of the tournament, ahead of Selection Sunday. We're still a little ways off, but not too far. We're just a couple of weeks away from March. Very exciting stuff.
Vols 13.5-point favorites at home over Vandy.
Vandy pulled
Big
the upset
spread.
at home not too many weeks ago at Memorial Gym.
I bet it's a good game.
I hope so. I to your point, and you brought this up at the start of the show, the idea of that rivalry having real juice again. So down for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Tennessee and Kentucky, the rivalry has been as back and forth as it ever has in my lifetime in the Rick Barnes era with Rick's success against Kentucky. And for the first time, Rick is below 500. He's now 11-12 all time against Kentucky.
I love that you're so scared of the chat that people are now having to spell out their names to reassure you that no, it's not a phallic reference that you didn't catch the last time I left you in Jackson alone.
I've been hurt before. He said my name is Jay and the last name is DeWeese.
Why are you doxing him? You don't need to do that on the air.
Well, he's in the FNM Bank chat putting out his name. I do. Tyler says I have PTSD. I do. And the source of my PTSD is sitting right there in the chat. Dixie N, who conveniently changed their last name after I got by this person on the FNM Bank chat.
Got by whom?
Dixie with the last name that starts with N. Won't happen again. By the way, quick update. We talked about yesterday, YouTube TV, unable to reach a deal with Paramount. They have tweeted an update that they have reached a short-term extension with Paramount to keep their content on YouTube TV, so subscribers continue to have access to Paramount channels, including CBS, which is very important for March Madness and the Masters.
Excellent. You ready for some polls, Jackson, or are you busy having a conversation back there?
Yeah.
First time for everything.
Dixie Normus on the FNM Big Chat says, come on.
Oh, no.
There's children listening.
Oh.
What are we doing?
Why are you talking to yourself? That's wildly inappropriate.
Polls are presented by Two Rivers Ford. That's why I don't trust the FNM Big Chat.
Not okay for the workplace.
Two Rivers, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What is the most positive story you've seen in sports this week? Karen says Juju Watkins at UCLA. 38 points, 11 rebounds, 8 blocks, 5 assists, 6 3-pointers in defeating number 1 at UCLA.
Women's hoops is not talked about with the same level of star power as last year, obviously, with the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, a rivalry with Iowa and LSU and the level of just, flat out polarizing figures that you had in the sport. But Juju Watkins is excellent. Paige Beckers is excellent. Vandy has a really, really strong women's basketball team this year. The Lady Vols obviously continuing to compete at a high level. It's just a great year for hoops in general.
Yeah, man. Michaela Blake's one of the best freshmen in basketball, men's or women's, in the country. By the way, it's NBA All-Star Weekend, too. Plenty of stuff going on this weekend.
Well, that doesn't count.
Who is your early NFL draft crush? Karen says Cam Moore. Jack says Abdul Carter. I love people just naming the best players in this draft.
The best one. The best player in the draft. I want him.
Here's one. Daniel says Savion Williams. Coach Matt could probably tell us a little something about the TCU Horned Frog wide receiver.
Frog.
That's all you need to say. If you were the Saints, what would you do with Derek Carr? Keep him or cut him? 58.4% say they would cut. I imagine many of those votes come with wishful thinking.
Yeah, they want Derek Carr on their roster.
Cut him so he can come be our quarterback so we don't have to draft a quarterback now. But they would take pretty much a $50 million dead cap hit.
Yeah. Pre-June 1.
If they retain him, they'll take a cap hit of that and then some this year and next year. So it's a question of just how much of a rebuild do the Saints want to go into here?
Kellen Moore played it very diplomatically. He was very complimentary of Derek Carr, but then made sure to reiterate, hey, you know what? I just got here. We're still figuring it out. Basically, it's the same kind of messaging that Aaron Glenn had around Aaron Rodgers, but you understood that was a situation that had a more definitive end.
What do you think Travis Kelce does in 2025? Retire, or do you think he keeps playing? 61% believe he will hang it up.
I mean, the way that he's talking on that podcast makes me think that he's done.
Very different tone from how he sounded Super Bowl week. Maybe the loss just took a toll on him.
Is a very just totally disarming loss if you're the Chiefs. Like you have found ways to win in basically every game, all but one game that the starters played in, and then to make it to the Super Bowl, to make it to the end, the place that you're so comfortable with, and just get dismantled.
Yeah.
I don't blame him for being a bit, he sounds a bit shell-shocked, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he did. He really did. I saw a lot of people having fun with the man. Just it's a tough reality. Like, oh, you couldn't win 3 straight Super Bowls? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hey, man. Like, I get the criticism. I get why he's an easy target, but what he's saying is factually accurate. They have played so much more football than everybody else, and that sport will break you. The fact that he's still out there, even if he's running around like he's got cement on his feet, it's an accomplishment.
Yeah, you probably start to wake up a little bit more sore than usual when that run of Super Bowls comes to an end.
Oh, sure.
Those are the polls.
That's the show. You're Lucas's problem on Monday. I am going to take the day off. Lucas will
Very
have...
respectful of you to your audience. As usual.
Well, it's Lucas's job to entertain you on Monday. I'm going to be sipping pina coladas and enjoying my weekend. See ya.